fence and we'd watch them do the burials, you know. I mean, it's almost like a just kind of just feeding mother, just like it was almost like the earth ate dead bodies, and these men were the spoon feeders, you know, these mortuary guys, these burial guys. You ever see the thing where like somebody like plays with a baby, they put the food on the, you know, they put them fancy peaches on the spoon and they do the airplane, you know? That's almost like what these guys were, the burial guys, where they would, you know, they wouldn't do the airplane sound with the body and then drop it into the hole, but they would, you know, they were the guys that were bringing the food to the mouth, you know, and the food was the body and the mouth was Mother Nature, Earth, you know, and they get that orifice open, they dig the dirt out, make a hole, put the body in there. But we go over there and watch them by the fence, me and my buddy Danny, and he had a bad neck on him. He was very light in the neck. I don't know if he had spine in him or if he was just more, what is it called? Just cartilage. He was thick and heavy on cartilage, you know. And and anyway, we watched him men put the ground in, put the body in the casket. And sometimes they'd take a break. They'd take a break and go for a walk, go do something else, you know, have to cut grass or something, you know. And so we'd stand by that fence, and they had a bunch of, they had these crab apples, and they looked like apples, but they were hard. So you would get them, and if you cooked them down, you could eat them. But if you didn't cook them, you could just kind of, if they were really ripe, you could kind of get one bite, and it was not very good. It was not very good snack. But you get one bite, and we'd try to throw these crab apples into the open grave, if they had an open grave. So sometimes I feel a little bit bad about that, I guess, looking back on my own life. You know, I'm out there humming apples in the grave sites, you know. So just kind of, I don't know if that's bad or good. I don't know. You know, I don't think there's any scripture out there or anything like that that says you can't, you know, send somebody up to heaven with a couple of apples in their pockets. But we used to, me and Limp Danny used to throw them in there, throw apples in the grave sites. Anyway, I don't know why I got already off on a tangent. Happy week. It is Monday, August 7th, and you're listening to This Past Weekend. I'm Theo Vaughn. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for being alive. You know, you got to be alive to listen. That's the thing. As far as we know. I hope that's the case, because when I die, you can shut the audio down, cat. Okay? You could empty out my ear holes. I don't need any other sound. I just want to feel the joy. That's all I want to do, man. I just want to be in just that eternal bubble bath, you know? With your loved ones just kind of floating by, you know? Maybe smoking cigarettes or, you know, having them a little bit of a snack, maybe a dessert. But I don't want to be listening to everything. I just want to be able to look somebody in the eyes when I see them in the afterlife, and they'll know that I love them, and I'll know that they love me. That's what I want. I don't need to hear all of this. You know, I feel like sometimes we'd be so much better off if we didn't have all this sound coming out of us. But then here I am, you know, yelling into an empty room here, you know, trying to fill up your side holes by your brain. You know, your little audio bat caves. So, but good to be here with you guys. Happy August. It's almost winter. Do you realize that? It's almost winter. And you're probably going to be growing a beard. And that's why I've got to say that Dollar Shave Club is the smarter choice. That's right. I'm hitting you guys with an ad here. Dollar Shave Club is the smarter choice. Some people have beards, you know. You ever seen somebody with a beard? Sometimes bald people grow a beard. Oh, they can't grow it on the top. They're going to grow it out the bottom, you know, just to show that they still got that power, that hair power. But Dollar Shave Club, man, they got that new executive razor. And that thing, it's like rubbing kind of a strong baby's ass across your face. That thing it's quality. I got it. I've been using it. I really have in the shower. I shave in the shower. You know, I shave in the shower probably like a woman. I think a lot of women do that. So I have that in me. You know, I was raised by a single mother, so maybe that's where I caught that. But when I use my Dollar Shave Club executive razor with that Dr. Carver's shave butter, and it's just for shaving, you can't put it on bread. It makes me feel good. I feel a smooth shave, you know. I feel like I got two baby's ass cheeks on the side of my face, one on each side, not two on one side. I feel good. And for a limited time, new members get their first month all of the Executive Razor with a tube of that Dr. Carver's shave butter. That's that urban quality face care right there for only $5 with free shipping. You can get this offer exclusively at dollarshaveclub.com/weekend. WEEKEND. That's dollarshaveclub.com/weekend. All right, let's get into what I was up to this weekend, man. First of all, I want to say that it's almost winter. You know, I saw a woman this weekend saying she was cold. So you're going to start seeing that. I'm cold. I'm cold. You know, you're going to start seeing that. And I remember they had a lot of people get violent snowstorms, you know, which is amazing. Snowstorms are usually, you never hear, oh, we got this comfortable, beautiful snowstorm. You always hear, we got this violent snowstorm. And I don't know where these snowstorms are learning this type of behavior, you know, in the nether sphere of the weather sphere up there, you know, up there in the Ballooniverse, up there in the sky. I don't know where they're learning this. But they're coming down here and doing dirt, a lot of them. And I remember they had a boy in our town. They had one snowstorm when I was growing up. And I believe that it was in 1991. And I was in an all-star basketball league. And I was not a very good basketball player, but I think mentally and emotionally I needed to be part of that squad. And so they put me on it. Because some of these men in our town saw that I needed a little bit extra. I needed a little bit of help. I needed something to boost my spirits. And sometimes you do that. Sometimes you make somebody a part of something just because they need it. You know, it's kind of like Rob Ryan and Rex Ryan, those coaches that are in the NFL. You know they're no good, but you know that they might always be heartbroken that their father was such a good defensive coach and that they'll never be able to compete. And so they keep them in the NFL just to kind of boost their spirits and probably keep them from omitting themselves from life, you know? Ending up in a holes where me and light-necked Danny will be humming apples at them. You know, trying to hit them with that vegan diet on the way out. But let me get back to what I was saying. So you have this, oh shoot, man, my brain. Oh, it was wintertime, basketball, and snow hit. So they called a timeout for the whole game. In the middle of the game, they called a timeout. And we're like, because everybody ran out of the game. Nobody's even watching this basketball game anymore in our town. People outside playing in the snow. And I swear they had one icicle, I guess, had formed. And it came down on a boy out there. And he was out there eating snow. One of those kids. Not eating yellow snow. I know they all have that old joke, don't eat the yellow snow. But this boy was just out there. I mean, just snacking on any cold water stack that he could get his hands on. And when he would just put that snow in his face, he was filling his mouth. And he couldn't feel his cheeks anymore because he was getting so cold. It was almost like when the snow hit, he became mentally handicapped. And I grew up down there in the mentally handicapped belt. You know, we had a lot of, you know, mentals, they called them then. Kids with autism, kids with a little bit of everything, you know. Some kids, they would say, oh, he got bit by a bat. You know, if they didn't want to, you know, make it real scientific, you know. Because back then it was just more... It didn't matter that, you know, oh, well, he's got, you know, this blah, blah, blah syndrome or this, you know, affliction or this thing or this, or it was just, you know, oh, maybe he got rabies, you know, he couldn't shake it. He got bit by a bat, maybe, you know. Oh, he got hit by something. He got hit by a Trans Am and he hasn't really been exactly the same person, you know. His studies have gone downhill since then. You know, and that was okay. It was just kind of part of the way things were. It was okay if you had a handicap. You know, now we all look the same, you know. We go through these processes. We look the same. Everybody got a straight neck. You know, everybody got a straight neck and everybody got, you know, white teeth and everybody has teeth. You know, I remember they had a dude in our town. All his teeth, I don't know if something was going on with him or he was, you know, he had a lot of his teeth in his pocket. And when he would smile, he would hold his mouth open like he was smiling, but then he would take his teeth out of his pocket and show them to you at the same time. So it was almost like it was still a smile technically, because you had both elements of the smile. You had the open mouth and the shape and the joy in his face, but then you had to look at his hand to see the teeth that were supposed to be in the smile. But I commend that man because that's hard work. You know, it's easy for us to smile. When we got all our teeth right there, it's one action. Open the mouth, feel joy, throw it at somebody directionally, you know. But this man, he had to reach into his pocket when he wanted to smile at somebody. He had to show them the teeth, and he kept them clean. But anyhow, this one boy went out into the snow, and he got hit by an icicle, dude, and his cheeks were already filled. He's out there just, filling up on snow. And maybe they'd been poor, and they were, who knows? I mean, when snow falls for the first time in your life, you have people collecting it. Some people thought it was like a collector's item. You had people, burying stuff in it, people, saving it and bathing water, boiling things in it. You had people doing prayers and all kinds of stuff and writing prayers out in the snow and all kinds of stuff. You had people just, drawing crosses and getting new tattoos and do-it-yourself tattoos and all that cat shit. You had the activities, you had the joy because it was excitement. It was something new. It's probably like the first time you're in an earthquake. Sure, you're like, oh, this is scary. And, sure, are the birds okay? Or is the good china has it fallen? But you also got that feeling of, man, what did I just go through? What is Mother Nature? Look at the powers that she has out here. She's out here hogwarting. She's out here, Aziticus matacaticus, she's got her activities, and that's what you felt the power. But I remember they had an icicle, they had a big icicle, and this boy, it must have fallen off of a tree, I can't remember if it was the tree or the side of the gymnasium, clipped this boy right in like the side of his, kind of where your neck and your head kind of combine each other behind the ear. And man, that kid was never the same. He was never the same after that great weather adventure of 1991, I believe it was. And I was Covington. We were playing against Holy Cross, which was some other basketball team. But what's going on with you guys, man? I try to look at the news. They're still talking about Russia, so I can't look at it anymore. I still can't. It's beyond me, I'm just over it, man. And the truth is, everybody acts like everything's so wrong with the world and with the planet and everything all of a sudden. Let me tell you about my weekend. I live here in Los Angeles, where you got some people out here been bit by the liberal bat. You got some people out of their minds living on an island. They're not even living in reality. Okay, people are afraid to probably leave the state because they might learn what other people's lives are like and other people's existences are actually like. But man, everything was fine this weekend. I worked on a television show for Comedy Central. Out there they have a young fellow, this guy Trevor Moore has a new show on there, and I got to play a homoerotic CrossFit boy. And I think I did fairly well. I hope I brought something to his project. Very funny young man. And I was just happy to be there, to be of service and to be, just part of whatever was going on. So that made me feel pretty good, honestly, to be there and be able to do that. And that'll be coming out, I think, in the spring. I'll let you guys know. And then what else, man? I got invited to the Beverly Hills Hotel pool to hang out with some friends. That sounds fancy to some of you guys. Sounds fancy to me. I didn't go, though. Kept it easy, Spent a little time with this lady. Kept it easy, Kept it easy this weekend. But I'll just tell you this, that everything's fine out here. People are still eating. People are still driving around in Lamborghinis and living their lives. There's still people rescuing animals out of the trees that don't want to be rescued. I saw a lady in the park the other day saying she's rescuing birds. I'm like, bitch, you are kidnapping animals. These birds came to that tree of their own volition, of their own will. And she out there trying to get these birds, saying they're homeless. I'm like, bitch, these are birds. Okay? So I know some of you, some liberal people, what are you doing? At a certain point, you rescuing animals from nature? Because guess what? Guess what nature's made of? Let me think. I don't know. Animals. So don't be out there taking birds out of trees and saying you're some kind of rescue artist, Saying you some damn Amelia Earhart of the aviary universe. Leave birds in trees. Quit with this bullshit, man. Going too far. So it's just, it's batshit out here, man. But yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, people act on social media like the world is, this and the presidency and this. Really, I think, what have the politicians ever done Politics is a rich man's game. Let me say that. Okay, I'll agree with you. Maybe it's some small town, some state levels. It can be a poor man's game. But politics is a rich man's game. When was the last time we had a politician that wasn't a millionaire? You know, like when was the last time, well, I won't say a politician, but a president. When was the last time we had a president that wasn't a millionaire? I mean, you got to be disconnected. You know, at that point, how disconnected are you? You know, that's my thing. It's like politics never, I felt like, did much for me, you know? I didn't care who the president was because, I mean, I was excited by it at times if I would get to meet the president, but I didn't really care because I didn't feel like he was going to stop by my neighborhood, you know? Somebody used to throw dead animals in our ditch, and we called for about 5 years trying to get him to stop it, and nobody would stop. And they was throwing dead animals out there. I think it was some veterinarian, some bootleg veterinarian. So what I'm saying is, if you're sitting around bitching about politics on any side of the net, why don't you worry about the politics in your own life? That's what we have to do. And look, I find myself getting into it too. I mean, you got people out here rescuing birds out of trees. Families of birds being broken up. Why? Because they're in a tree? Bitch, they are birds. So I just don't know what's going on, man. Went out to breakfast today, though. With a buddy of mine. It was good to catch up, and I had French toast, dude. I don't usually eat like that, you know. One just went wild, you know, just sugar to the face, And I like to do French toast the old-fashioned way, you know, kind of that Italian style, where you put the syrup in your mouth first, and then you put the French toast in. Some people like to mix it out here in the wild on your plate. I don't do that. To me, that's like getting dressed in public. You know, I like to do it in private in the inside of my mouth. That's how I like to have my French toast, you know. Syrup first, get that hit off that frickin' El Cabin, you know, and then drop that FTZ in your man. You know what I'm saying? Then you're doing that magic behind closed doors. Other people out here doing their French toast out on their plate, dude. Come on. Don't be a pervert, you know. Get it together. Know how to eat French toast. So that's how I feel about that, man. But yeah, it was good to be alive this weekend, man, and I hope it was for you too. I got some cool stuff coming up. You know, always hit the dates and everything, and I got to remind you guys I'll be in Dallas next weekend. If you got a new friend in Dallas, an old friend, anyone, an ex, a lover, a current, a stepfather, you know, a foster care, somebody that came through your home in foster care years ago, and you forgot about them, send them out to my show. I'll be there at the Addison Improv, August 10th through the 13th. September 6th through the 9th, I believe, I will be in Austin at Cap City Comedy Club. 14th through the 17th of September, I'll be at Cleveland Hilarities. And it looks like we will be getting a date for Vancouver. That'll probably be August 30, September 1st. Excuse me, I just belched or burped. I don't know which one it was. And then I'll be in Huntsville, Alabama, November 16th through the 19th. You can find all of those tickets at theovon.com/tour, TOUR. I'm going to get to some calls, man. We had a lot of great ones come in. I got to go to the Improv in a little bit and do a comedy set. Man, I got to do 6 comedy sets last night, and that was pretty cool. You know, at one point I was performing in this Volcano, and a Volcano is it's a restaurant of sorts, if you want to call it that. It's a fish house, pretty urban out here, you know, it's kind of more of an urban crowd, which is fine, just letting you know the environment over there. And they have these pop-up comedy shows, and they have actually pop-up comedy shows everywhere now, I guess, where you can follow a group on Facebook, and it's like a pop-up group, and the next thing you know, they're like, okay, we're having a pop-up this, and it can be a barbecue, comedy show, clothing sale, it could be anything, child care. We have pop-up child care out here at the mortuary, you know? So you could drop off your dad and drop off little Freddie, and we'll take care of his ass, you know? We'll take care of both of them. Just pick up Freddie in about 4 hours, you know? But they have it's just a surprise business that wouldn't normally be in that location in a certain location. And so they had 2 of them this weekend, last night. One of them was in a backyard of an apartment complex. Regular apartment complex, you know? Some families, some lesbians, some single men. That seemed like kind of the clientele. And then in the backyard, I guess they got permission for somebody to put together a big stage. And next thing you know, there's probably about, I would say maybe 90 people sitting out there just watching comedy, enjoying their own hometown, their own, living room refreshments and just enjoying comedy right there. And that was pretty cool to see, man, just to be a part of that. And then another one was at a Volcano, and that's type of sushi food restaurant. And we did that one as well. That one was a little bit weirder. Kind of some rich people. And rich people sometimes, they're disconnected. They're disconnected from the realities. They think the things you're talking about, they just can't get it sometimes because they're disconnected. Or they're afraid to laugh. It's almost sometimes the elite, sometimes are rich people, sometimes they're afraid to laugh at poor people. It's like they're giving them something, Or when they do laugh, sometimes to me, sometimes it appears like they're doing you a service, Yeah, I'm cool. I'll be okay, But I hit him hard. I said, look, I don't care if you guys laugh. I know this stuff's funny. I'm going to be fine either way. And that's where I'm at with comedy these days, man. I'll do my best to make you laugh because that's my job. But if you think I'm going to sit there and feel bad if you don't or feel a certain way, I'm not doing that shit anymore, man. I do well at my job. I am good at my job. That's what I mean. I'm not saying I'm the most famous comedian. I'm not saying I'm the best comedian, but I will say that I work hard at my job, and I do it well. And if you come out and see that, you'll get a little hit of that. And I think some of this stuff I'm just saying this because I need to say it. I never say this kind of stuff to myself. And sometimes that inner dialogue in me, in my life, the inner things that my brain tells me or the things I say to myself aren't always the most positive. So, and sometimes I don't know where that comes from. I'm still trying to dig into certain parts of my life and my past to know where that comes from. But I know that it's in me that, sometimes, my brain doesn't want to take care of me as much as it should, and it doesn't want to have as much confidence in me as it should, or as I do. So it's it's just just stay aware of that and try to work through it. That's what I'm doing. So I appreciate you guys being here with me in that moment where I just kind of did a little bit of that. All right, I'm going to get to a couple of texts and calls. People hit the hotline, and I want to thank you guys for hitting the hotline. That number is 985-664-9503. I'm going to change the voicemail on it just to give everybody a little bit more information. But the hotline, you can call about anything, question, concern, something going on in your life that maybe you're looking for a young man to relate to. Some things I won't be able to relate to. Some things I have no thoughts or suggestions about. But if it's something that I can share or relate to, I'll do my best to share. And I appreciate you guys sharing. I really, really do. All right, let's hit a couple of calls. Here we go.
Hey, Theo. This is Cody calling from Boulder, Colorado.
That's Cody in Boulder, Colorado. Thank you for calling, Cody. Onward.
Big fan of the show. Love what you do. Think you're the freaking man. You just have such a unique perspective on life. I love the way you communicate it.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you saying that. I'm just trying, to stay alive. Let's go. Thank you.
Reason I'm calling, I was curious on your thoughts on something. I'm sure you've heard about a bunch. You see it all the time, texting and what people are doing on their phones nowadays. I've been going to Chipotle a bunch.
Oh, wow. Could have been going to Chipotle. And to some people, that's a Mexican restaurant. Some people don't realize that. Some people, that's a Mexican restaurant. When I was growing up, when I went to high school in Mandeville, Louisiana, we got a Taco Bell, and suddenly things got Mexican, and that was a Mexican restaurant for us. And then somebody actually, and this is going to sound a little bit vulgar, but in 1996, somebody pooed in the meat. Service worker there got angry. There was some staff issues, and somebody, did a little bit of a little bit of excretory in the meat there, and they had to shut it down for about a year. I might have went out of business. I don't remember, but that was a tough time for our town. Onward, Cody. Sorry to interrupt you.
Every time I go there, people literally can't help themselves but to look at their phone while they're waiting in line. And it's like 90+% of people, they can't stop themselves. And I've just never really been a big fan of this whole phone culture and what it's turned into in terms of hanging out with people. Everybody's on their phones all the time, and I just want to hear your thoughts on it. What you think about what's going on in this weird world we've come into.
Sorry. I got some coffee stuck in my throat. Well, yeah, I mean, look, a buddy of mine just said he got text neck. And text neck is some tightening of the muscles and some vertebrae issues you can get from the constant being down, looking down. I think that it definitely makes us dumber over time because we're not, our heads aren't up here. We're not as alert and aware. So our awareness is in time could be affected. I was sitting at a table or something the other day, and some girl said that kids are being born with like indentations in their fingers from where their parents like always holding their cell phone. You know, like their pinky finger has like an indent on it from where the cell phone rests on it. And I thought that that girl was out of her fucking mind. But it did make me start to think how many things could be genetic. Like how many, you know, based on us being addicted to our phones. And I'm going to say addicted because the one thing that I have withdrawals from is my phone. If I can't find my phone, I get, you can feel it in your body when you can't find it. And that's withdrawals. That's not like, oh, I just can't find my phone. That's a real thing. You know, when you can't leave home without it, when you can't go, like that's addiction. And it's interesting how it's okay to be addicted to our phone, but it's not okay to be, you know, like addiction's usually bad. But with our phones, it's like we accept it. Like it's okay. Like it's a means to, like it's a means to something. So it's a good question. I worry about it too. And I don't know what the answers are. I don't know if at some point do we start to, you know, lose like our feeling of like peripheral awareness because we're so right here looking at a screen. That would make sense to me. Because if our old screen was our eyes looking out, you know, just the world in front of us, and our new screen is just this little world in our hands, then you would think that our ability to interpret and awareness would manifest or would adjust to adapt to this new screen over time. So yeah, I'm curious. But how long does that kind of stuff take? You know, for a human to genetically adjust like through like generation to generation? I have no idea. But it makes me scared for sure. You know, meeting people is old fashioned. You know, if you, I mean, look, we go to the fist bump now. I thought about this the other day. Like I always used to scrapbook, bro. I'll be real about that shit, you know? I mean, I was the only dude you knew probably in, you know, when I was a freshman in college, I was doing steroids and scrapbooking. You know what I'm saying, man? I was out in both games. And if I tell people, oh, I used to scrapbook, people are like, look at this motherfucker, you know? Look at this. What's that? You know? Look at this boy coming in a little bit lavender. He coming in a little bit lavender. But the truth is, Cat Daddy, okay? You're on Instagram now, aren't you? Well, all of a sudden, everybody a scrapbooker. Because that's all Instagram is scrapbooking. How many everybody's a scrapbooker now? So maybe I was progressive, if I think about it like that. Maybe I was early to the game. But it's very scary, man. It's very scary to think what's going to happen. You know, because I know that I'm addicted. You know, I deal with addiction in other parts of my life or, you know, have chosen to look at that. But I notice it with my phone. I notice it. That's a real thing. How do we beat it? Do we beat it? There's no going back. You know, it's like we're not going to go back to a time where we don't use our phones, I don't think. You know, I don't think at all. Now, do we start to monitor it if there become serious health risks? Then that could be something that happens. I mean, we're really in an experimental time because we've never had, you know, we're kind of the first generation. You know, at my age, I'm kind of the first generation where, you know, I started using a cell phone when I was 20. You know, we're going to find out what the long-term effects are. So who knows? What if our legs fall off in a couple of months, you know? There's a huge class action lawsuit against AT&T. You know, can you imagine even just all the wheelchairs trying to show up at the courthouse? Shit could get wild. Let's hit another call right here.
Hey, Theo, what's up? It's Miles. I just wanted to call and thank you for reaching out to me on your video and everything. I thought that was pretty cool.
Thanks for calling, Miles.
I just got sober. I was sober for like a month, and then I relapsed on heroin. But now I'm 2 weeks clean. So, yeah, I just wanted to, say thank you. I listened to your advice, and it actually really helps. So, yeah, thanks. And I'll keep watching the podcast. All right. Have a good day.
Appreciate you calling, Miles. Yeah, and look, man, thank you for reaching out and for sharing, what's going on with you with us. Congratulations on, choosing to look at what's going on in your life and to battle your addiction. I'm sorry to hear about that relapse, but you sound good, man. You sound good on that call for sure. And I know you say you use the word advice, and I'm not trying to correct you or anything, but I'm gonna say I don't really have advice, but I do want to share if I can, But I'm proud of you, dude. It really makes me kind of feel something here, and you say that. So you're welcome. It's tough, dude. It's tough when you find yourself in certain situations where you get to a point for some reason that you feel empty, or you feel alone, or you feel scared, or whatever it is that manifests into you, where it causes you to abuse drugs, and then once you start to do that, then the drugs can start to abuse you because they have powers themselves, making, just making us addicted. So I appreciate you reaching out, man. And I hope you'll call in and reach out again, dude. I'd love to maybe do a follow-up with you, and see what's going on, But I really appreciate it, dude. And I wish you the best. You're fighting some battles. That's ballsy, man. You're out there really fighting some stuff, and I don't know if I could do that. But I commend you for calling and sharing your strength, because that makes me feel good to hear that, honestly. And that's really what, going to some of these programs is about. It's about, that we get to share and just realize we're not alone dealing with shit. So I got your back, Playboy. You feel me? Thank you for calling, man. Onward.
Hey Theo, it's Nick. I'm from England. I know you bag English people out, but I'm a...
No. That's Nick from England. Thank you for calling, Nick. Look, man, I've worked with some great British people. My issues with the British are that the rest of the world gets stuck dealing with a lot of shit that the British caused. British did a lot of dirtball shit. And the rest of us are still out here dealing with it. Africa, y'all took almost all the good stuff out of Africa, Y'all put that straw in there like the man says on that There Will Be Blood and drank that dark milkshake, slanking them diamonds and everything up into your mouth. So that's just my tough thing with Britain sometimes. And then we have a lot of British show hosts. America's gotten obsessed, or at least Hollywood has, with putting British into a lot of American roles. And I think it's great. But also, I'd like to see somebody that grew up here in some roles, And I think I start to feel angry personally about that because you don't see a lot of Southerners in roles. Every Southerner gets looked at like, oh, there's some fucking worm-eating, fish-strangling idiot. Well, that's not the case. That's not the case. A lot of us are educated. Just because we have a Southern accent doesn't mean we're ignorant. And I think that some of that starts to resonate in me, and it all kind of mixes and flares up. And I know I'm being all over the place here, but just want to tell you a little bit more of my thoughts behind some of that. And The Patriot is my favorite movie. Now, Patriot's a good movie. You haven't seen that? Mel Gibson, big hair, beautiful hair. He got that Michael Landon follicle reach, on his neck, on his hood ornament. And it's a beautiful man, too. If you look into his eyes, that guy, god damn, man. That dude got crystal balls in his face. And so he's a beautiful man. I know he's, he goes off at the mouth sometimes, but a lot of people do. I'm not defending him, but that man got beautiful, and he beat the British in about 2 hours and 10 minutes in that movie, The Patriot. One of my favorite movies. But I do appreciate you calling, and I, I respect what I respect the British. You guys been out there. You guys been in the game. So onward.
Avid listener. I listen every week.
Thank you.
I'm listening to your podcast. I love them.
Thank you. Love you, brother.
What I was trying to present is having some female issues. So, was married, had a kid, and basically the best sex I ever had in my life was with this woman.
So, saying he was married, he had a child, and the best sex he ever had was with this woman. Okay, onward.
And every woman I'm with since, I can't stop thinking about my ex-wife, But emotionally, we don't get on. So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with sex, good-looking women, to emotionally connecting with a woman? That's what I want to ask. Anyway, love your podcast, and hope you respond. Peace.
Nick, I appreciate you calling from across the pond, man. And, and I'll say this too, the British were bosses, man. People want to say this and that, and I'm one of those people. I was sitting there just riling in. But, if there's another way to look at it, the British were straight up boss hogs. Y'all was freaking throwing bacon and breast milk all around the universe and doing things like you wanted to do at a time when that was the way to do, to be out there conquistadoring, in Game of Thrones and taking people's heads off, and keeping them in special souvenir cases. And y'all were out there doing that kind of stuff. And in that time when it was a battle atmosphere, y'all won. Y'all won. So, but I do appreciate you calling, man. How do I deal with that kind of stuff? Like thinking back on some of the best sex. I'll tell you this, you can get addicted to a certain type of sex you had or some experience you had. I had an early sexual partner and things got straight wild, things got pretty wicked, things you type of see on the internet, that internet sex, I'm talking about that Jungle Book sex, you know what I'm saying? But, I'm talking about tan people jumping up and down on big bears' belly tops while they're floating in the river. I'm talking about the wildcatness, and yeah, you can get addicted to some of that kind of stuff, so I think sometimes it is tough to move on. And if that's the case, you might want to see a sexual therapist about it and talk to him, because there's probably some, there might be more issues behind that. How do I deal with sex these days? Well, I find even sex is something that you can get addicted to if you're not careful. Sex is fun. Sex is something that makes you feel good. Sex is something that, if you get stuck with it right there, then you might not be able to then connect with somebody. Well, here, let me put it like this. Like anything, sex can get something you can be addicted to. But if you're having trouble finding the same type of sex with a new partner, maybe you're not over the old partner yet. That's one thing it could be. Now for me, I know that I'm over, the previous partner. I was just, the sex was something that was really kind of spectacular. But these days, man, I'm more neurotic. I get some intimacy issues when it comes down to sexual activity, and so I got to battle through some of that. Like, that's the thing, getting older. I think back in the day, we were only supposed to live to probably 18 years old or 26 years old. If you look at Michael Landon times and you look at, the proverbial times back then, I don't even know what proverbial means, but if you look back on that, you'll see that we're not supposed to be alive this long. So when people out here, humping and, inserting dick and everything out here at, 35, 45, 70. My father had me at 70. That dude was throwing dick in 1980 at 70 years old. So there's a lot of stuff behind the dick at that point. A lot of, could be insecurities, anxieties, that sort of thing. But maybe I think sometimes it takes the right person to come along too where you feel comfortable again. So maybe you're kind of waiting for that, Maybe you might have some remorse from the first relationship that you haven't let go of, and maybe some of the sexual memories are the last thing that you hold on to because you're afraid to let go of those, because then I don't know if you're still with your ex-wife, but it sounds like you're not. Then maybe you'll feel like you have nothing unless you hold on to that memory of the sex. I don't know. I don't know if sex is the reason why you guys split up. Maybe if you were outside of, I'm not accusing, but if you were, venturing elsewhere. And then sometimes I think that sex is one thing and that being in love with somebody's another thing. It's really, I was talking to a friend this morning about, he said, man, I can fall in love. And once I fall in love, I just can't have sex. I just am not sexually attracted to a woman. And for me, this goes back to, I think these days a lot of men are looking for mothers. And there's something that happened with our generation where men just were not mothered enough. And so they're looking for mothers when it comes to partners. And then they're not looking for, it's not the sex that attracts them as much anymore. They want that motherhood first from their spouse. And then also now sex is so readily available everywhere. Sex is so, it's like, before you even lay down at night with your wife or girlfriend, you've seen 70 pictures of tits on Instagram or this or that, or there's just sex is everywhere. So we're really oversexed a lot of times, so it's hard to even have as strong sexual feelings. That could be it. Maybe if this was 15 years ago when you fell in love with your wife or whatever, and the sex was great and everything, it was because maybe it was 15 years ago. You had 15 less years of exposure to, the sex that's out there, stuff on the internet, or, people showing their tits at bus stops and everything. I remember a homeless lady, somebody had jumped off a building in New York City, and I walked up, and she goes, "Did you see it?" And I'm trying to look over the crowd see a little bit of light, just get a quick glimpse of the body or something, or see if anything hit an awning. And this lady said, "Did you see it?" And I'm like, "What?" And then she just showed me her crotch. This lady's showing her crotch out here. Nobody else saw. People are all just looking. I'm like, what the fuck's going on? I wasn't ready to see any crotch at that time. I just wanted to, especially when you're looking to maybe get a glimpse of a body that, just flew off of 56 stories, and then surprise, you see crotch. That could be severely damaging to someone's, sexual equilibrium. So, with intimacy, I don't deal with it super well these days, man. I have a tough time, sometimes figuring that stuff out. And I don't think I'm bizarre in that, because so many of my friends have a tough time too. I think it's something that's super untalked about, but I don't have any shame about it. Like I've taken many lovers in my life, I feel confident in myself, but I still feel, I feel like there's a lot of, sometimes it's a smoothie in my brain when it comes to sex and intimacy and wanting to figure out, how do you make that work in a relationship and in a marriage, and how the present day environment affects all of that, and, the stuff that we're exposed to and pornography, how does it all fold together? It's tough. I know there's a book out there called The Fear of Intimacy, which I heard is really good, that I'm about to read. I don't know what some of your issues could be, man, but I appreciate you calling in about it, and I hope that, me thinking about it was mildly, at least, entertaining for you. Let me see if we can get in one more call. I got to go do a set in a few minutes. Here we go.
Hi, Theo. This is Angela. I love your show. I just wanted to ask you a question about what people say and how it affects us.
Okay, this is Angela. Thank you for calling, Angela. You sound like a lovely lady, and I appreciate it. And what people say and how it affects us. Okay, I'm listening.
When I was about 15, the boy that I had a huge crush on made a comment about my arms being really hairy. And ever since, I've shaved my arms every day. And that was like 15 years ago. So it's crazy because, like, clearly I don't give a shit about him now, but I still shave my arms. I'm just wondering if there's something similar that you have, and then if other people have the same thing. Keep up what you're doing. Love the show. All right. Bye.
Okay, Angela, thanks for calling. That's interesting. So some boy told you you had hairy arms. You started shaving your arms, and and you don't even think about the boy anymore, but you're still living the shaved arm life, and that for some reason that really stuck in you. Wow. It's powerful to think about because, I just remember a camp counselor one time at YMCA summer camp saw me coming out of my apartment complex that I lived in, and he made fun of me that day in front of some of the other camp counselors. And before that, I didn't really feel a lot of shame. But after that, I felt so ashamed about where I lived. And since then, I've always had a little bit of shame about my home. It's crazy the things that people say and how they carry on with us forever. Or sometimes they do. It's a good question. I mean, that's a good question, I think, for everybody to ask themselves. Any of the listeners, who are still listening right now this past weekend, what's something that somebody told you, a put down or something that affected the way that you thought of yourself, or something, and how you then changed yourself, or a ritual or something you started that you continue to do. There's all kinds of things for me when I think about it. I remember people telling me I had buttocks like a Down syndrome boy when I was young, and I had a good friend who had Down syndrome. And sometimes I felt pride because we had similar kind of backsides, but ever since then, I do feel sometimes a little bit nervous about it when I'm wearing certain types of clothes. Maybe. Let me think about what else. I have a big nose. I have a wide nose. So I think about that sometimes. People would always, actually people wouldn't always make fun of it, but like around the neighborhood, people would say stuff, Let me think about other things that, I had big ears growing up. And so that made me self-conscious. I used to sleep with like this, like a church tie or a tie, tied around my head, and I'd tie it around my head at night to kind of hold my ears back. And that, that was crazy. But the biggest one for me was that I felt shame about my home, a girl told me that she liked my eyes one time. And I guess I didn't feel a lot of nice comments from women growing up. And so she told me she liked my eyes. So then I started getting addicted to eye drops, I remember. And for years I was addicted to eye drops. I mean, probably 8 years. I had 2 things eye drops on me at all times. And I was constantly, I was probably doing 50 drops a day in each eye. I mean, I had an $8 a day eye drop habit. And that's really unheard of. What else? I don't know. It's interesting. And I'd love to know what some of you guys are. Maybe we'll pull out right here for the day, man. We'll pull out right here for the day. Hit the hotline. What's something that somebody said to you one time, that affected the way that you thought about yourself, or it changed, it created a ritual or something you did, even though you might not even remember who did it anymore, but you still do that. I mean, it's crazy to think that Angela's out there shaving her arms, baby. Man, you must have some real bobcats at the end of your elbows, But you sound like a beautiful person, and, I'd let you hug me with them dang beautiful. I'd give them arms a fade. Boy, I bet you got some serious hair gravitas coming out of those things. But you're welcome to hug me with them anytime you want, anytime I see you. And I appreciate you calling. It's interesting to think about. I'm going to think about it too, and I'm going to come back next week and kind of share with you guys. A lot of people are wondering, why didn't I do a Thursday pickup episode, a follow-up? Because I want to start doing that on Thursdays. Well, for one, the studio's not done yet. We had to order some other stuff. I got one new microphone. Spent $500 on this thing, so really excited to have it. It's a big addition. But for two, we ordered some stuff that didn't come in yet, so we couldn't get it done. But I'm trying. I'm still working towards it, and I appreciate you guys' patience. But I booked that thing for Comedy Central, so I had to work. It was that literally got the call at 5 p.m., and the next thing you know, the whole day I'm working on set all day the next day. But I was really happy and feel pretty grateful that that kind of stuff happened. Because I don't book a lot of stuff, but I know when I get there on set, I'm feeling a lot more confident these days, and I'm pulling it off, baby. We're going to do good things, and I appreciate you guys' love and support. So, yeah, hit the hotline, 985-664-9503. I want to thank all of our callers who called in, and I want you to hit me up and let me know, what's your Angela story? What's your thing that hit you? What's your thing that got you? That somebody said that you still do. You still carry out something you do. You know, you put on extra lipstick, or you do your hair a certain way, or, I mean, for sure, I remember being young, I was really thin growing up, and that's what got me into using some performance-enhancing drugs. People were just making fun of the way that my body looked, or just calling me skinny. I was so desperate for acceptance from people that when someone didn't accept me at all, it just really, I didn't have any defenses against that because no one ever taught them to me. But I'm an adult now, and now if I'm still living that way, then now it's my fault. You know, it's my fault if I continue to live that way. So now I got to be cognizant of those things, and if they come up, I got to figure out what's going on, why is it going on, and then start to find a solution. And a lot of times that solution is just, you know, sharing it with somebody who can help me figure it out. But I appreciate you guys calling. Appreciate everything. Let's get out of here again with Spencer Jacob Grau. I'll put the link. I think they have a new album out. I'll put the link on the YouTube page. The YouTube will go up, I think, Monday night. And this is Monday morning. Remember, if you want to support Dollar Shave Club, it's dollarshaveclub.com/weekend for $5 for that deal. And also, we're still going to do the Patreon. I had people hit me up, but it's there in spirit. If sometimes you don't see the link on the page, it's there in spirit. Happy Monday. Happy middle of August. Can you believe it? Do you believe in August? Well, you better, man. It's wrapping its arms around you right now. You know, and I'm here in Dallas, Texas, and I am in a Intercontinental, I think the hotel is called. It's good. The elevators are really slow. When you get in the elevator, and I don't like an elevator. You know, if you know me, you know I'm old-fashioned. I like staircase. You know, I remember a time when if you were handicapped, you just waited at the bottom of the stairs until some strong boys or a strong lady or two would carry you up if you had to get up to a different floor. You know, and I think that was a more romantic time. And some people are like, oh, well, that's crazy or whatever. You're crazy. Okay? You've been eating crazy sauce. Check your gums for CS residue, baby. Because I haven't been eating crazy sauce. I'm saying that if you're handicapped, you're sitting at the bottom of the stairs, right? And there's nothing wrong with being handicapped, dude. In the future, people that are handicapped will rule the world. But if you're handicapped, you're sitting at the bottom of a staircase, somebody comes along, right? They're going to help you. They're going to help you. And when they help you, you're going to feel helped. They're going to feel like they helped someone. And those are great feelings, you know? And that's immediately, people are connecting. You know, maybe you're going to the third or fourth floor. Maybe you guys sweat a little. You know, maybe they have you thrown over their shoulder and you know, let out some body gas. You accidentally have a little bit of body gas that comes out or something. And it doesn't make anybody a bad person. It just, I think times like that brought people closer together. You know, back when, you know, if you were walking past the staircase and you saw, you know, somebody that was H-capped or something sitting down at the bottom, or somebody that, you know, had a limp or something, you know, they couldn't get up the stairs, you were able to help them. And it made you feel good, man, and it made them feel good. And that's how a lot of friendships probably started back in the day. Whereas now you get into a cold box and it takes you wherever you need to go and you get out. And you still have your handicap, and the person who had the opportunity to help you, they didn't get to help anybody. And so everybody's maybe feeling, you know, a little less connected than they were back in the old days, you know, back when you just waited at the bottom of the stairwell for a kind man or strong women, a couple of strong women to scoop you up and get you to where you needed to go. But the elevators aren't working here. That's what I'm trying to say. They don't work very well at this hotel. You get there, and then there's literally about a 4-second delay before the doors open and let you out into the hallway. That's a long time. It's a long time for when there's already that awkward energy in an elevator. I feel uncomfortable in elevators, and I long have. And I used to think that it was other people making me feel uncomfortable. Now I know that it's me. It's me who's just naturally born filled with uncomfort. You know, I mean, if I was a donut, I'd be an uncomfort Kreller, and I'd be filled with uncomfort cream. And that's just how I think I'm made, you know. The ingredients in me, I mean, you're looking at 6, 7, 8 cups of discomfort out of the gate. But I'm happy to be here with you guys today, man. Thank you guys for joining me. I hope you had a good weekend. I know, I'll tap into the news, man. I'm here in Dallas. I'm here in the South. Even though Texas is its own universe, it really is, man. Texas is extraordinarily diverse, I find. There's a lot of diversity here. And this weekend was just crazy. The Charlottesville stuff popped up, and that's on everybody's mind. I'm not going to go into it much. I think my immediate thoughts were that this is sad and that this is ignorant. Those are my immediate thoughts. The idea of anybody thinking that their small group rules the universe or runs the world, it's inane. It's ignorant. And when it gets to these levels where people are out protesting and stuff, it's just pretty ridiculous, and it's really old-fashioned too, if you will. I'm not trying to minimalize it, but it's like, really, and it's ignorant. That's what I thought. I would look at these ignorant people. But then I'm wondering, well, who are these other ignorant people who, if severely ignorant people are going to be somewhere, that you're showing up to protest severe ignorance? And the media is saying that it's a couple of thousand, not that many people. You have a few hundred, pitchfork monsters out there, and let them go. Let them have their say. Let them wave their flags and say what they want to say, and then let it disperse. But then you have also people who I don't understand the reason, if knuckleheads are out and about, I stay inside. Because you know what I'm saying? Knuckleheads, if you go out and you meet up with a knucklehead in the street, you're a knucklehead. I'm not saying your views are right compared to theirs, or that your views are wrong compared to theirs, but that's dumb. You know what I'm saying? If somebody's out in the street with weaponry and ignorance, I promise you, I'll be inside drinking sweet tea or making homemade butter. Or being inside doing Monopoly or something, or making candles or doing homemade woodworks. You're not going to catch me out on the side. I'm not going to catch a case of ignorance. So I just don't understand some of that. I just don't understand why give these people attention. And then the media comes and gives them mass attention. Mass attention. So now you have the whole world thinking that this is who America is. And that's the media's fault. That's not true. And it's just, man, it makes me mad. I wish somebody would just come out with a news organization or any type of entertainment that was just real, based in reality, that didn't have a political agenda, that didn't have a political point of view. Because it makes me sad when you see the rest of America. Being like, we're not fucking have anything to do with these people. It makes the South look ignorant, which I think these days sometimes is a goal. It's a goal sometimes of these mainstream media outlets to make the South seem ignorant, I don't know. Just really sad. It made me think, wow, these dudes definitely didn't get the fraternity they were rushing for, these fellas, it's just fun. Some of it was just so funny and ridiculous. But then they take these photos, they put them at angles to make it look like there's a million people out there, when it's probably 400 people or 300, none of them even have an Uber app. They all drove. They'd only be there for a couple hours. They're probably paying pretty good money for parking if it was a premium area they were in. After $24 of parking expenses, they're not going to be out there anymore. So I'd have let them spend that parking money and go. But I just feel like the media creates so much more than there really is. It makes our country look so bad. And that's disheartening. It's disheartening because it's just not the truth. So I think some of my feelings were, it made me feel sad. It made me feel sad. And it made me feel if ignorance is in the street and you go out there, man, it's hard to say that you ain't a little bit ignorant, So, it's just sad what happened. People died. There was a helicopter crash. And then police officers have to go and be out there. Now you have police officers who are in unsafe conditions. It's just, some of the selfishness and ignorance is just beyond me, but man, the media, blood on their hands. The media should be tried in a court of law. I do not understand how you can continually scare people, Because 150 dudes in Charlottesville, Virginia, it's not that scary, really. You know? If you let those guys loose against a real pack of any type of group of people that they hate, I mean, even probably 40 strong gay dudes will whip those people's ass, you know? And instead, you give them all this attention and make it seem like there's something special. So, just disheartening, man. But we go on, you know? And, you know, maybe you lift some of these people up in your thoughts, you put them up in prayers, you know, but we go on. You know, we go on. And we have things to take our mind off of things. You know, this weekend I went to, you know, I'm big into the Lee Harvey Oswald. You know, I'm big into LHO, the alleged killer of John F. Kennedy. And I'm here in Dallas where he kind of really, you know, polished up his, really finished off his career, if you will, even though he went to middle school in my hometown. And I'm not a fan of Lee Harvey Oswald, but I'm sure there's a little bit of infatuation there. I think it's interesting. You know, so today we went to the book depository. Me and a friend of mine went to the book depository, and she was chatting. Man, sometimes you get with somebody, they just, at one point I'm like, what am I even listening to anymore? You know, is there a B-side to this person? Can I get at least a remix? You know? Do you know another language? At least just continue to just gab and gab and gab. But can we do it in Spanish or Slovakian or Slovakian? You know. So I had to be a good listener, man. But we're in there, man, and it's pretty wild. You get in that book depository, you know, and you see where, you know, Lee Harvey was and where they cracked these shots off of. I'll put it on my Instagram if you want to check out. It's the view. That's the angle. That's the view. That's the distance coming out of an iPhone. You can check it out. And so that was pretty wild, man. But I recommend it if you get here to Dallas, check out the book depository and you go check out. Let me tell you this. What you need to check out is the boarding house that Lee Harvey was at. Because Lee Harvey seemed like kind of a small little, if these days he'd be a guy who was into like Krav Maga, but not like now, but like 50 years ago, you know, like small, wiry, you know, fiery. You know, he had his wife staying in a house nearby. He was staying in a boarding house. I mean, you get to go to the boarding house. So if you go to the boarding house, you get to see what was going on in the actual boarding house. And the girl whose family ran the boarding house when Lee Harvey stayed there, she still now operates the museum that the boarding house has turned into. And she gives you tours. So you can talk to her and think with her and see what some of her thoughts are. But after a lot of investigation, I think it's hard to think that Lee Harvey didn't do it. So that's where I stand. I've had some people reach out to me and ask, and that's where I stand with that. What else is going on, man? I'm a week off of the pornography. So I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling virile a little bit. But I can feel just over my shoulder sometimes. I can feel, you know, unknown titties or foreign breasts or, you know, wild cooter or dirtyteens.com just lurking on the nape of my neck. So I have to be careful. I have to be careful because I'm trying to stay off of the pornography and just keep it out of my life. You know, I start to think that I'm better than that. You know, now if you're 25 years old and you're spraying out, and you know, and you lending yourself a hand every now and then, you know what I'm saying? You're putting your body and you're putting your nuts to work and your vas deferens. You know, you turn them into some straight up snipers, sniping out, you know, just skeeting out and living life, and that's okay. But if you find that you have some sort of addiction to it or some sort of issue, then hold the line, brother. Go for a walk. Breathe deep. You know what I'm saying? Put ice in your mouth. That's what my buddy used to do. You know, and my buddy's actually, his mother taught us that. His mother one time knew we were hiding up in the house one weekend and doing masturbation. And so she took a bunch of ice and put it in our mouths. And I don't know what it does to you, but I mean, I'll tell you this. I've never lived through a strong winter, but I don't think I could jerk off, you know, in a snowstorm. I don't think I could do masturbation in an avalanche because there's something about it that just shuts down your desire to self-spray, do self-spray. So anyhow, man, I'm here in Dallas. I had a good weekend. I want to thank everybody that came out. We had a good squad that came out, a lot of people. Saw some friends, man. I had people that drove in from Kansas that came out and vomited in the bar afterwards, but nice people, and decent vomit. A hearty burst of vomit flew out of this lady. And I remember when I was young, the first time I ever vomited, and I'd been having peanut butter and jelly, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and I just was vomiting. I was just spraying hot on the wall. And I was yelling, I'm screaming, I'm crying. My mother comes in and she's like, "What's going on?" And I'm just like, my dinner is flying out of my face. I just didn't have a concept of puking. I'm just like, my dinner just does not want to be with me. And so she helped me clean it up and then put me back to sleep. But I remember just being scared after that to eat for a while because I was scared to know if certain foods wanted to live inside of my body, But what else, man? What else is going on in the world, Joe Rogan had his birthday this past week. I don't think if you guys caught that. I think it was on Thursday or Friday. But I want to give a shout out to him and Coco Diaz. I spoke with him the other day, and I am name dropping here, but I feel blessed to kind of be able to take knowledge from these guys. When it comes to podcasting or thinking, or just making me feel like a part of the business that I love of stand-up comedy. So I hope we have a million more years of Joe Rogan. If you haven't listened to Joe Rogan, I suggest you check into him. He's the strongest sponge, I think, that we have out there these days. And I say that in the sense that man likes to, he likes to be strong and he likes to absorb. And those are good ways to be, man. He's an inspiring dude. And Coco, if you don't know Coco Diaz, man, look, I know if you've had hot cocoa, if you like that, you need to try this, hit a spicy cocoa. Joey Coco Diaz. All right, before we get into a couple of calls here, I wanted to let you know the hotline number again is 985-664-9503. You can hit the hotline discussing anything we're talking about. You can start a topic idea of your own if you want to floor one for the next episode. And that's pretty much it, man. I appreciate the calls. We've had a lot of great ones. Some of them I'm saving for future episodes that we're kind of piecing together. And some of them, just hits at the right time. And so we're going to use it then. But I greatly appreciate it. All right, let's get to some calls. We had a girl that called in last week. And she was talking about how she had hairy arms when she was young. And that she got made fun of a lot for those hairy arms. And since then, she's always shaved her arms down. And here it is 15, 20 years later. And I bet if she saw the people who had made fun of her arms, they wouldn't even remember anymore. Because people are forgetful animals, dude. I mean, we leave memories everywhere. People are forgetful animals. But that she... if she ran into these people, they wouldn't even remember, but that she still remembers, that she carries that with her. And so we got a lot of calls that came in. But I do want to thank everybody that came out into Dallas this weekend, man. I had a great time. Big respect out to my boys Gustavo, DJ Yo that came through. Who else? Lil Geet. My boy Sherb hooked me up with some camera guys that came out. Beautiful fellas, man. One of them boys had beautiful eyes. One of them had beautiful hair. I mean, he had the falls coming off the back. When it takes balls to grow the falls, man. I'll say that. Okay? It takes rocks to drop the locks, baby. And if you're not growing the back of your hair out, and you never have, then just try it. I know this haircut looks like something that the dog caught, or something that maybe you'll wake up and there might be a bird living in, or that a seamstress might come and kind of pluck a little bit off the back of your scalp, off the upper nape of your neck, so she can have a little bit of extra thread to do her deed. Okay? I know that. I know there's nothing clutch or savvy about coming in with this. But I'll tell you this, when you show up with that gutter cut, when you show up with that gunt chop boo-boo, people know that you mean business. People know that you mean business. And I tell you that my life has soared since I have not been afraid to try something new. If it's something as small as a haircut or, even just choosing not to pick my nose while I drive, I'm making changes in my life. What are you doing? What are you doing? So let's get to some of those calls, man. I know we're getting to them early today, but that's it. That's it. They're great. I'm going to give you a couple of quick dates really fast. I will be at the Cap City Comedy Club in Austin, September 6th through 7th. I'll be at Hilarities in Cleveland, September 14th through 17th. And I'll be in Huntsville, Alabama at Stand Up Live. That's November 16th through the 19th. You can get the 2 albums that are out, 30 Pound Bag of Hamster Bones and Musket Fire on iTunes. And you can grab some other stuff that's on theovon.com/store. All right, we got some great calls, man. Like I said, the callers were hitting us up in response to if somebody said something to you that you then lived your life by it or felt, it hurt your feelings. It affected the way that you viewed yourself, and you carried those behaviors on for a long time. And I've had them. And I'll get to some of mine, but let's crack into this. This is old Poop Eyes calling us. Let's hear you.
Hey, Theo, man. Big fan. I enjoy the podcast and your stand-up. So, yeah, I'm from Gulfport, Mississippi, actually. So that gentleman who wanted to suck your peanut behind the Greyhound station.
Mm. Yeah. He's referencing there was a gentleman I met from Gulfport on during a Greyhound bus, life adventure, who was trying to, touch me off with the insides of his mouth. Who was trying to do, inner wall and tongue favors with his mouth onto my body. And thankfully I made it out of that. But that's a typical Greyhound, something that can happen at some of the stops while you're just trying to get a Gatorade or live your life. But anyhow, yep, Gulfport, Mississippi. I actually hitchhiked out of there one time to South Carolina, chasing an ex-girlfriend. Ended up petting somebody's cat on her porch in the middle of the night in Charleston. And thank God realized that I was borderline about to turn into a stalker. So anyhow, onward. Thank you for calling, brother, from Gulfport. Onward.
They got some people there. We were talking about on the podcast shit that impacted your life when you were younger. Well, my mom, when I was like 5 years old, it was a joke around the house to tell me I had poopy brown eyes.
Okay, he said a joke around the house. He had poopy brown eyes. Poopy brown.
Like my eyes were brown. So I went to school, and when the teacher was asking, what color is everyone's eyes, people were like blue and green, and I said poopy brown because I really thought poopy was a shade of brown. And so I quit telling people my eye color was poopy brown. So that impacted my life, but it was embarrassing. So I just wanted to share that. Thanks, man.
I appreciate you sharing that, man. That shit visuals you had and that you were feeling that. And yeah, I mean, it's funny because you'll hear something, you'll think it's okay to say, and then you'll share it, And yeah, I can imagine that'd be weird, For years, you got them poopy brown eyes, You got them, what's it called? You got that diarrhea dilators, People saying, oh, man, he got that, he must have been eating kale. He must have been having a few beets because his eyes are setting it off with that booty gravy style, And I can feel that, man. I appreciate you sharing that because that's a real thing. It's wild when we're young how somebody tells you one thing and then it changes you forever. Somebody told me that I looked like a Doonesbury character, one of those characters from a cartoon, and they're kind of dead in the eyes. And when I'm half Polish, so when you're half Polish, your eyes, that this area of your face only comes in at about 70 watts. You're not running on 100 watts like other people are, like a lot of, you'll see some people sometimes from Venezuela, Ecuador, Brazil. They're running high wattage up here in the optical area. But you hit the Polish, man, they're coming in around 70 watts in the eyes, because they don't want you to see what they're thinking. You know, they want to keep the stage dimly lit, even though sometimes there's a lot of activity going on. You know, there's a lot of dialogue running behind the curtains. But I appreciate that, man. You know, you had them poop eyes. Other people had wild stuff. I remember they had a boy in our town, a young brother, young black child, named Doo-Doo Brown. They called him Doo-Doo Brown. And if you had poop eyes, imagine this boy had whole, I guess I'm assuming, just entire poop physique and everything. And I don't know how he caught the name or not, but he really had it. You know, he really had young Doo-Doo Brown. They called him Richard, I think was his name. And then at one point, somebody gave him a pair of church socks, and he would wear the church socks during basketball. And he never had the right shoes. He always had on, you know, sometimes not even the same shoe. So you'd see him out there on the basketball court, one sneaker, one cowboy boot, church socks flying out of him. And that's when people started calling him Dress to Kill, DTK. And they would yell, dress, from the sidelines every time he'd get the ball, dress. And the boy would get so nervous that he just couldn't even deal with his own life. You know, Dress to Kill. I don't know whatever happened to him. You know, but I'm doubting he turned into quite the haberdasher, because he probably was afraid to live, you know, to live or to wear anything. I mean, hell, he could just be wearing a onesie these days, and I wouldn't blame him, because it's the things that people tell us sometimes that resonate with us forever, you know, and that just, and it's weird, and you don't know when it's going to be. You don't know what years of your life, like, or what moments until years later. It's so crazy. You know, it's just so wild. But I appreciate you calling in, man, and you know, I'm sure you got decent eyes, dude. You know, I'm sure you got decent eyes, bro. So good luck out there. All right, let's take another caller here.
Hey, Theo, it's your boy Tom in rural North Carolina. Just listened to your this past weekend about insecurities, and when I was
wow, Tom's not Polish, man. Tom's coming in heated there. You feel that? He's got that balamos in him. He's got that, you know, he's got that, you know, like somebody historically in his family was hiding gunpowder under their tongue. You know, or filling, or you know, or maybe doing cinnamon suppositories or something to up their game. He's full. You can hear the life in him. All right. He's got that Dolby surround sound coming out of his face. Let's hear it. Keep going.
When I was a kid, like third grade, I grew up overweight, so I had man boobs. And as a kid, that was real great to make me an easy target.
Yeah, kid titties, they call them. Kid tits. And you'll see a lot of boys with them, kid tits. And sometimes they're hotter than some of the breasts that are out there that you actually end up touching. Oh, I don't know if I want to tell this story, but I remember when we first started seeing breasts and tits. They called them both things back then, breasts and tits. And I remember this fella in our town had some, I mean, and I hate to say it, I'm not, you know, I mean, he had beautiful, beautiful tits on him. And as a child, I could recognize it. Like, my God, you know? If you'd have just been able to cut off like his head and the rest of his body below his breasts and his arms and just put that other little rectangle into a contest, it could have won a beautiful kind of pale but still beautiful tits contest. Because this boy had some just glamour mammers on him. I mean, just sunlit. I mean, it just seemed like somebody had just caught two little handfuls of sunlight and just shaped them into just sweet nippled meats. Beautiful. This kid had beautiful tits on him. And I remember one time, even in a pool, kind of when I was going through those times when you start to get those squirrels running through your body, when you're feeling a little bit electric and you're feeling sex inside of you, when you start feeling it. I remember in the pool, I would repeatedly grab onto this boy's chest and just be like we were wrestling, you know. But I knew in my head that I was being sexual with him in some way. I know that's crazy, man, but I just wanted to share that. But thank you for calling in, man. This isn't about me. Onward.
So we're standing in the lunch line, and these two kids are like, you have bigger breasts than women, all this shit that to this day, I just never, like, I've lost over like 200 pounds in my adult life. And I just never forgotten that. And it's led me down I was always athletic.
Okay, you lost 200 pounds now. So you really did. So you had the weight issues impacting it as well, onward?
But just like a real big kid. As I got older, just the insecurities never left. Leading me to take TRT, running multiple cycles of D-ball.
Okay, he's talking about steroids now, onward.
I mean, it's to the point now where, I can be big enough. I grew up very, very insecure. So now I try to project almost the opposite, where I'm just very big and I'm very, aggressive and very, very not me. I think if I didn't have those insecurities, I think I would have been a very different person, a lot nicer person, a lot nicer to look at. Because now I'm just in the gym 20 hours a week, quite literally, taking exogenous testosterone just out of fear. That's my insecurity. It's a pretty deep one to this day. I look myself in the mirror and I just think I look small and I look terrible. So it's like a true body dysmorphia that those two boys really inflicted. Hey, man, thanks for the podcast. Love you, bro.
Wow, man, love you too, man. I want to say that, and this call really reflects with me, man. I can really relate to this. And I don't know if you guys heard some of the things that he said. I'm hoping that you did, because you have ears that go straight to your brain, and you have jurisdiction over those holes. But he was saying that people made fun of the way he looked when he was young, and so it impacted him so much that years later he's taking steroids. And then when he looks in the mirror sometimes, he feels like whoever he is, it's not even really him. That he would be totally different maybe if he weren't caught in this, cycle, if you will, of having to feel like he had to be big or built or jacked or geeked up on that protein. And man, I can relate to this 100%, dude. That sounds like, something that very much happened to me when I was young. I was extremely thin when I was young. I had a basketball coach one time that called me a name. It was a nickname, but it made me feel really thin. And I had a big butt too, so I've always been big in the glutes. I've had that kind of either kind of a black girl's butt or kind of even a Down syndrome. My buddy Derry and I had the same butt. I've talked about that before. I had that kind of DS booty. And so years later, I remember being in high school, and somebody had steroids. A buddy of mine who was homosexual, and he ended up doing pills and driving into an embankment. But we got into using some steroids, and it made me feel. I just didn't have to think about that anymore. For the first time ever, I felt okay with how I looked, even though I probably looked like an idiot. I've never been really long in the neck, and I'm actually considering getting a neck brace, a children's neck brace, to get started with that. I want to probably put about 3/4 of an inch in my neck by maybe February or March of length. And but anyhow, so yeah, man, I can totally sympathize, and I appreciate you calling in and just voicing that, because that's real, man. When I got caught up using steroids for honestly probably a few years on and off, and I just never felt okay. And then the steroids would make me feel crazy. I got in a fight one time. Young brother stole an album one time at this party, and next thing you know, I'm out swinging with this kid and throwing hands, and that was in college. I remember just getting abusive and angry sometimes when I would get drunk. Getting angry towards women at times when I was drunk. We're just mixing, because you don't realize at that point you're just mixing things up. But the biggest thing is over the years later, I remember thinking, wow, I don't know if whoever I truly am is even somebody that wants to spend that much time in the gym. I think in my heart of hearts, I think I would rather be, somebody who probably does a little bit more yoga or a little bit more of an artist, or maybe, to be honest, bro, I think I could have been a damn dancer, bro. Real talk, dude. Some of them, I think I had that footwork. I mean, I'd see a hummingbird sometimes, and I'd be like, man, I know this motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? Or I'd see some of those videos with that Fred Astaire or the Shirley Temple, and I'd feel like, man, I can do that footwork. Like I just felt like if I had the smallest heels on and I showed up on a pale-faced baby, that I could leave 30 seconds later and just have freckled prints. I could leave freckles on that young stallion. You know, that I just had the ability to do things. I could have been a dancer sometimes. But, dude, you can't say that kind of shit somewhere environment you're growing up in. You know, and everybody else around you is tough, or, you know, they got proper food at home and you're eating cereal. And then that's, you know, and you're just not bringing on the calories and whatever you need or whatever. But I appreciate you sharing, man. That's crazy. But I can feel you to look in the mirror and know that, man, I don't even know who I am, but I'm so caught up in this, I just got to keep going. But I will say this, for me, over time, it's gotten better. And these days, if I can make a yoga class 3 days a week, I mean, it's taken me until here I am in my later 30s. But if I can hit a yoga class 3 days a week, I feel like I'm almost back where I need to be. You know, that I'm finally kind of just starting to really kind of grow up. That for some reason I had all these demons I had to ride over for a while. So, sorry to get serious, but I appreciate you calling in about that, man. Man, I'm tired, guys. I know it's, you know, I can't tell if this is a good podcast or not. I have no idea. It's 1 a.m. here, and I got to be out of here at 5:30 to hit the air. But I'm happy to be here with you, and I'm going to keep it going. We got another call right here. But thank you so much for calling, man. You know, and I wish you, you know, if you're still involved in that and still using them roids, I wish you the best in finding a way out of it. Because I remember when my arms would start getting smaller, immediately I would feel less than. You know, and these days still I worry about some of the side effects. You know, like extra hair on my back, or, you know, I don't have any anger issue, anything like that anymore, side effects, but, you know, extra hair on my back. What else would I think? Oh, one of my nuts one time felt a little bit square for a little while, but that could have been seasonal as well. But let's take another call. Here we go.
Hey, what up? If this is Theo, this is Jason out of Texas. I just wanted to say I was just listening to your podcast, and you said something about that everybody thinks Southerners eat worms and strangle fish or something. And
yeah, it's true. Everybody thinks Southerners, it's like we're nothing, you know, like we're idiots, or we're this, or we're that. A lot of great Southerners, man. A lot of amazing, great Southerners, you know, or just Americans, which is really a cool way to think about them. Onward.
I laughed my ass off. And you're right. But who gives a fuck what they think? And don't mean we're ignorant. You know, I'm from the South. When I go to California, they think I'm from Tennessee or something. I'm like, close, but, you know, I'm from Texas. But anyways, I just wanted to call and say that because that shit was funny. Keep it up, bro. You keep people like me. That's what attracted me to you, is that Southern draw. It's like somebody like me, man. Peace.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm stuck with how I sound, man. You know, and for years out in Hollywood, I tried to change the way that I sounded. I tried to change the way that I felt because I just didn't think I could get any work. I couldn't. They weren't going to let a guy like me have any work. I didn't look around and see any other Southerners or Midwesterners catching anybody that was like me making it in Hollywood. And I still don't these days, you know? I mean, I can't really, and it does. It makes me mad sometimes. I feel like, it doesn't make me mad, but it used to make me mad. It does, well, let me be clear about what I'm feeling. It makes me upset. It makes me feel unwanted a little bit, you know? But I can't help it that I was born with the way that I sound. You know, it's crazy. It's like in Hollywood, they'll say, you know, embrace who you are and live your true self and do this and do that. But then you tell that to a boy, you know, and he makes it all the way to Hollywood, and he gets there and he shows up, and, you know, and 15 years later, he's still doing his art, and he's doing well at it. And then for people to still think, oh, this guy is this way, or this guy is that way, or this guy's an idiot, or this guy's, you know, just because he sounds the way he does. Man, we wouldn't have a lot of amazing people if it weren't for the South. We wouldn't have the Louisiana Purchase. We wouldn't have Mark Twain. We wouldn't have Walker Percy. We wouldn't have Eudora Welty. I mean, there's you could go on. The list goes on forever. We wouldn't have SEC football. We wouldn't have probably half of the NFL. You know, I mean, those are just a couple of small elements we wouldn't have if it weren't for the South. You know, so it's like, and I'm no like Southern, like, you know, I'm no rebel flag. I'm not in any of that shit. You know, but I think that if you're going to say that everybody's welcome, let's make everybody welcome. You know, because when I look around Hollywood, I don't see anybody like me. You know, and that's a little bit scary. It's like, what's going on? Are they trying to like, are we getting rid of people that sound Southern or that are from a small town or they're from the middle of nowhere? You know, do you know how hard it is to get from those places to the bigger cities and to get to another level? You know, it's a lot easier. I think it's a lot harder than starting out right there. Oh, you were born in New York or born in LA? And I mean, I'm just saying, I'm not trying to compare really, and I guess I'm getting a little fired up, man, but that kind of stuff makes me upset. But I feel you, man. It doesn't mean we're ignorant. Now, it doesn't help when they have people like, you know, in Charlottesville that, you know, that are ignorant as fuck. It doesn't help us, you know. But I think you're right, man. You know, we just keep shining whatever our true light is and do our best. Because if you take away my Southern accent, then what am I? You know, then how do I sound to you? You know, it's like, if you want to be accepting of people, let's be accepting of them. But yeah, it's wild, man. It's wild these days. It is really wild. And sometimes I feel like in my career path that I embody this thing that a lot of people currently hate. You know, which is like these deplorables in the country. And maybe it's just a weird thought that I have about myself sometimes. I don't know. I know that I'm not that. But sometimes I feel like people treat me that way. Just because how I sound. And it's pretty sad, dude. It's like, hey, people are, preaching at rural America to not judge and to be diverse and to this and that. But then, we show up and, they just think we all are from Tennessee, It's just interesting, man. It's interesting. But hey, that's life, right? That's where we're at. So, all right, let's catch one more call, man. I appreciate you guys being here with me, man. I'm getting weird, I guess. Fuck, I don't know, dude. I wish you knew what I wish I had a dang ginger ale right now. And I wish I had maybe some apple juice, too. When I was young, I used to drink apple juice, and boy, I would piss big on apple juice. I wet the bed till I was probably about 28 years old, and I used to piss big on apple juice. And I used to stay at my grandmother's, and they had apple juice up there. And when Daddy got doused up on that AJ, you know what I'm saying? When I got geeked out on Johnny A. Seed's round red treats, you knew that I was going to geyser up. You knew that. Let's hear one more question here, or one more call in. Thank you very much. And thanks for calling in there from Texas. Appreciate it. I'm happy to be in your home state today. It's a beautiful place.
What's up, Theo? This is Robbie Lopez from Kansas City, Missouri. I was calling to tell you about a time that pertained to the most recent show, and you said to call in. That's why I'm calling. Anyway.
Okay, I appreciate you calling, man. Let's get to it, buddy bear. Robbie Lopez, onward.
There was this girl that was super duper hot, like back in the day. We were all hanging out, and she was a skinhead girl. She's running around with the skinhead dudes, and she had what we call a Chelsea haircut. And it was like short hair, whatever. Beautiful girl, though. Big, dazzling eyes, real pretty. Well, I'd always be mean to her. She never knew that I thought she was pretty.
Okay, so she had a skinhead haircut. You called it a Chelsea cut. That reminds me, when I was growing up, they only had one hairstyle in our town, and it was kind of like a Polish lesbian style. And that was our bus driver who gave us that cut, Mr. Ray. And he would park the bus and cut everybody's hair at the same time. And that was a $2 cut you got from him. And he kept the shears up there in a bag under his seat. And he'd stop the bus on Thursdays and get everybody's head at once. Beautiful Ray. And he's in heaven now or in hell. I don't know what he did in his spare time. But he seemed heaven-bound based upon the small activities I saw him pull off. Anyhow, onward.
And I would call her a little boy, say she looked like a little boy. Her hair was ugly, shit like that. Never thought nothing of it because I knew I'd never have a chance with this chick. And lo and behold, about 8 years later, I get a tap on my shoulder while I'm sitting at the bar with some friends. And it's this smoking hot girl. And it turns out to be that girl. She tells me, I have not forgot about that since. I hated you for so long, all this stuff.
Wow, so she showed back up into your life, huh? That's very much is that karma? I don't know what that is. It's maybe human karma, but not karma. I think that's just somebody showing back up. Okay? Tell me more.
We'll end up hanging out. She ends up having sex with me.
Woo.
That stuff pays. You give them a complex, and you end up reaping the rewards. So it goes both ways.
I appreciate this story, man. You know, that's an interesting thing, is giving a girl a complex like that. And they used to have a book about it. It was this guy, Nick, somebody, it was like The Art of Dating or something like that, The Art of Attracting Women, something. And it was called a neg. Like if you gave a woman a neg, like a negative thing, then that it would turn around later and they would, it would make them feel negative. So then you had an upper hand or something. I'm not sure the psychology behind it, but it ended up getting women attracted to you. So that's interesting, man, that you told her, you know, when she had that short haircut, you know, she was running with that female fade, you know what I'm saying? That UPS worker, a lot of female UPS workers, you know, sport that top. And it's interesting because, you know, that doesn't always work that way. You know, I remember one time, because I remember hearing this when I was in college, and I was not doing swell with the chicas. And this girl at a club, I saw her, and I was immediately, she was a pretty girl, and she seemed nice. And I said, man, that dress looks horrible on you. Oh, no, I said, you could do a lot better than that dress. That's what I said. And I don't think it was my typical behavior. I was just trying something, you know. I was trying anything. I was susceptible. And she walked off, right? Well, about 4 minutes later, these two dudes come over, and they're fucking pissed, dude. The guy's like, you're being a dick to my friend. This dude slapped me in the neck, okay? I've been hit before. I don't know if you've ever been slapped in the neck, but I mean, I felt like a black child in church because a black mother will slap a child in the neck. You know what I'm saying? That neck is a popular destination for a black mother's hand. And this dude, for the rest of the night in this bar, dude, I was too embarrassed to leave. I was like, I'm not going to leave like a little bitch, you know. But I had 2 drinks. I was holding them against my neck, bro, to keep the swelling down. So, I mean, in this case, you're lucky that it worked out that way, I guess. But the issue then is just bigger than that. For me, what I see is that the girls that are going to like that kind of stuff, something's wrong with them, you know? And I'm not saying something's wrong with them long term, but they have an issue. You know, they feel like if they get put down that, you know, they have some daddy issues, or, you know, they have, you know, they're not emotionally stable, you know? The girls that like that kind of stuff are kind of fucked up. You know, and you might get laid, but then if you end up with a woman like that, is it going to be a healthy relationship? You know, an emotionally stable woman is going to be like, fuck this guy. You know, this guy has no self-esteem. You know, I'm not trying to put you down. I'm just, you know, I know you're showing me the other side of what can happen if somebody tells you something bad, how it can turn out good. I mean, in this case, it turned out good, you know, where you were the one saying something bad, even though you were just saying it because you were, you know, you probably were too insecure to tell her that you liked her. And it's easy to sound confident when you're being negative. So if you give a woman a negative thing, you know, what I think is the attractive part is just being confident. And I think in women's head, it gets tripped around like, oh, he's confident at least enough to tell me something negative, so he must be a confident man, you know. But, you know, I just don't think that long term that's easy, that's that great, you know. And what helps me for approaching women, because my problem was I used to put women on a pedestal before I even approached them. I used to think that every woman was better than me. But when you approach them, you know what I'm saying? You pull up and you throw a little bit of duck in your gut. You know, you push your butt out and you know, put your neck long. You know, you put a little duck in your gut, man, and you show up with a little bit of quack in your stack. You know what I'm saying? You stack your balls. That's why sometimes I do wish my balls were square, so you could stack them. You saying, I'm having a tough time at this moment, but I'm not going into this moment unprepared. I'm going in full fortitude, and I'm going to stack my balls before I walk through this fire that is facing me right now. And that's what, because that's what women want. They want the confidence, you know. And I notice if I don't post women on a pedestal first, and I just think about them as just a regular person, that I don't need to have sex with them. I don't need them to like me. But I do want them to know who I am. That way I find out, it always works out well. It always works out cleanly. Because I'm so grateful that years now I'm not stuck with someone who is insecure or heavily insecure. We all have some. But look, I got enough. So I need somebody that's probably going to be just a little more secure than me, you know? See, I think showing up to a woman, and just with that confidence, you don't have to use that negative, but hit her with that confidence. Wow, you look good. And you don't need to say it like I need to fuck you. I don't care. You know what I'm saying? I'll go home. I'll go home and read a book from a famous Southern author that probably changed the universe. All right? I'll go home and watch Interview with a Vampire Diaries or whatever shit that was filmed in New Orleans. Everybody wants to say the South isn't shit, but they want to come to our they want to come to our areas of the country and use us for our history and our culture. They want to, it's like, every place offers something to this country. Every place does. So I don't know, man. I think that maybe that got me a little bent out of shape tonight. So I didn't mean to bring some of this down on you guys, but I appreciate you calling, man. I appreciate you calling with that thought. It's interesting. It's interesting that's the way it can work out sometimes. You can do a neg. And I think, you can neg a woman. You can give her a negative. And, she'll remember, that guy was at least brave enough to not just hit on me. He at least it seemed like he didn't need me. But then if you end up with that woman, it's, just starts off from an unreal place. So I feel it as a way to pick up a chick. If you're just trying to get laid, yeah, that could definitely work. But if you're looking for something long term, you know what I'm saying? If you're trying to be an ostrich and stick your head down in a woman's dirt for a long period of time, you're not trying to catch a worm, but you down there, you know what I'm saying, just looking at the roots, seeing what's in the dirt, seeing what's in that woman's heart and head. If you're going to want to be in there for a while, then I don't really recommend that behavior. But I appreciate you calling about it. We all have things that people have said to us in our past that make us feel a certain way and that build on us. I think a lot of those things were with our parents sometimes. I remember my father always said, and this might be a little bit of a downer, but he always said, "Have I ever let you down?" That's what my father said. Because I think at his age, in his 70s and going into his 80s, that was his biggest fear. Was having these young children and them thinking that he let us down. And I always had to lie to him, man. I did not really enjoy my life as a child. And I would always tell him that he didn't let me down, even though he often did. And so then I think I built up this thing where I was afraid to tell people when I was not feeling good. I was afraid to tell people when I was hurting. I was afraid to tell people that I felt insecure about how skinny I was. So then I go on and end up using performance enhancing drugs. And I remember one time I had an ex-girlfriend, she found all my steroids and broke them all. Come on, honey cat. Daddy's trying to get them gams, But in hindsight, thank God, man. Who knows, I remember one time I bought some stuff from some dude who told me it was steroids, and I ate them for probably about 8 weeks, and it was just some kind of junior mints that he had taken all of the coatings off of. So I'm fucking out there going hard in the gym, thinking I'm on performance-enhancing drugs, dude, and I'm on damn movie candy. So you don't know what you're getting in this drug market, and you never have known. But some of that came from, insecurities. Me, people saying, look at this skinny boy. People look, feeling weak, afraid to play sports because I was too weak, or we didn't have insurance. So if I got hurt, we weren't going to be able to, I'd just be broken. If I broke my neck, I was just that dude who, always had his head on one of his shoulders, If I broke my clavicle, I was going to be that fellow whose shirt never fit right for the rest of his life. But it left me with fear. Most of the stuff we do is out of fear. People are probably afraid to get to know Southerners sometimes because maybe they're afraid. Maybe they're Maybe they're afraid. Maybe they're afraid that they won't have as much history as we have, or they won't, be as kind as we will. I don't know. People, fear runs a lot of things. It's amazing. Old Poop Eyes called in, man, my dude. Old PE, they call him. And he probably was, every time he went to the bathroom, he probably was thinking about his eyes. That's bizarre, isn't it? And here this dude is just, on that rear strain game, and he's thinking about his eyes because of something somebody said one time. It's crazy the junk we carry. It's crazy. I'm trying to think of some other things that happened to me. I used to have really bad spaces in my teeth. People would make fun of that all the time. I have medium arms. Somebody told me I had medium length arms one time. And God, look at that arm. If you can see that, I'm not trying to be Charlottesville in here at all. I'll just put it up in the air. Sorry. But it's, I only have medium length arms. So every time I reach for something, if I go get a can of soda, it makes me think about that. Well, damn. What life would be like if I had another extra inch of hug coming out of each arm for somebody. It's just crazy with what we get left with. And how we don't know how to get out of it. And I think one thing we need in this world is to change our school system, man. And you can be like, well, dude, what are you talking about? It's such a vague blanket statement, Theo. Yeah, it is, bro. Okay, but here's what I'm saying. The fact that we don't have a class that teaches kids how to accept one another, that teaches kids how to share their feelings if they are feeling a certain way, that teaches kids, that if they got kid tits, how to get through that, emotionally, so that they're not running around having to use drugs and having to compensate, I remember one time, I feel like I didn't like my eyelashes, so this lady I was living with had an eyelash curler. So for 2 weeks, I was curling my eyelashes, man, because I felt like I don't know. Dang, now it sounds like, maybe I wanted to be like, just like a young woman, but that's not the truth. I just felt inferior about how I looked, and that's why you have kids running around doing all this stuff. And that's why you have people running around racially out of their brains, filled with hatred because something happened to them. Somebody taught them something wrong, or somebody said something to them, or did something to them. I had some hatred against race when I was young. I got jumped by a bunch of black kids a couple times. Man, it'll make you mad. But that kind of stuff fades after you realize that a lot of people in certain environments are just angry. It doesn't matter what color they are, or who there's something wrong in their lives. They're broken too, I just can't believe we don't have a class that helps people learn certain things. Because I'm sure I've sounded very stupid, very ignorant to a lot of people. But I'm out here, I'm keeping my eyes open. I'm keeping my poop. I got poop brown eyes, bruh. You know what I'm saying? I'll go bold. I'll show you my bowls, dude. What's in your bowls? I'll hit you with these opticals, man, these dirty whirlpools. And I want to throw out a topic for next week before we get out of here. If say the world were coming to an end, as we know it, they got, these alleged North Korea threats, and I believe that a lot of that is hype. I really do. Sure, you have a president that runs off at the Twitter handle, and but I think a lot of it's hype. I think North Korea would be silly to engage in activity that would ruin what they have going on. Sure, what they have going on isn't ideal to a lot of us, communism, but to them it is. And they seem to be getting away with it, so surely they wouldn't want to ruin that. So I think it would just be ignorant for them to really start something wild. But I'd like to know, say the world's going to end, and you have a day left. What do you do? What do you do with that day? How do you look at it? What do you, and I want to keep it out of the depths of despair, but in a joyous way. How are you going to spend that last day? What are you going to do? And I'm going to think about what I would do as well, and we'll go from there. So anyhow, man, I didn't mean to get negative tonight, man, but sometimes things go where they go. And I hope to get some rest and join with you guys next weekend. And I'm trying to do some other stuff. I'm hoping we get the studio built this week. So that's great. And we're staying at good numbers, man. And I appreciate you guys' support. Stick with us. It's just 1 week, man. You know, we're going to do some things, man. And we're going to do it together. And I appreciate you guys, you fucking beautiful little Ecuadorian mud cats. You know what I'm saying? I'll squirt frosting up your grandmother's freaking nose holes, bro. You know what I'm saying? And then I'll blow in her mouth and just as hard as I can and just have her just spouting out, turn her into a beautiful sweet cream fountain. So if you got a grandmother, man, tell them I love her. Tell them I love her. But I'm Theo Vaughn, and I appreciate you guys being here with me. This has been this past weekend. I'll see you guys next week, or maybe we'll do a follow-up this week. Right now, it's what we're trying to do. I just want to send some love and some light and some thoughts and prayers out to everybody that's affected by Hurricane Harvey. You know, and they make it sound so nice, Harvey. You know, oh, what's Harvey going to do? You know, oh, Harvey don't ever do nothing. You know, they make it sound like a fella in the neighborhood that, you know, still lives with his parents. Oh, Harvey, you know, collecting bottle caps and doing that. You know, Harvey opened up his own window washing business and they went out of business, you know. Friggin' Harvey, stealing all the Christmas candies. But then that's not what it is, you know, and it shows up and it's more violent a lot of times than its name. And my thoughts and feelings and everything go out to those people in Texas that are struggling. Or if you have family members down there in Houston, you can make a donation. You can text Harvey, Harvey, to 9099, and that'll make a $10 donation. You can also, I believe, to the Red Cross. You can also look online, J.J. Watt, who is just a volatile, beautiful, you know, capable caveman from the NFL, from the National Football League. Has started a fundraising program. You can look it up online and you can donate there as well. But I'm happy to be here with you guys today. You know, that rain comes in and it's heavy. That rain comes in and it's heavy. And if you're dry today and you're able to drive down your street or get out of your home, you know, for you, that's probably, you're probably doing better than a lot of people. You know, a lot of people down there struggling, and I'm going to find some other ways that I can donate. But thank you guys for being here with me today. I remember when I was young, I was a heavy sleeper. I was a heavy sleeper, man. I mean, I would dream that I was sleeping. And that's when you're dreaming that you are asleep. You know, that's heavy. That's double sleep. You know, you're under two realms of brain peace. And so that's where I was at. And I remember one time I fell asleep and a lot of rains came because I grew up in Louisiana and a lot of rains would come. And one time the baseboards or whatever, the thing was rotten at our place, and the water came in while I was resting. And I remember it getting all on the floor an inch or two, and I'd been resting in my mother's room. And she had a package of, I guess, I don't know how to say this appropriately, but feminine care sticks. You know, those feminine care sticks that women use. And that some men might even use. I don't even know what's going on these days, but these feminine care sticks, and that were still in the packages, and they had gotten, a box of them had gotten caught in the water or whatever, and they were floating all around the room, and they had a bunch of, a sack of marshmallows, because sometimes I'd have me a little bit of marshmallows, before I'd go to bed, or just I'd keep a sack by my bed sometimes, and they had a sack of marshmallows that had, the water had opened up. And there was just all these feminine care sticks and marshmallows kind of floating around the room. And they had the neighbor's cat was over and was kind of kicking these feminine care sticks around the water. And it was wild because I was so scared, but here this cat was finding so much joy, snacking on these marshmallows and kicking around these feminine care products around this little lake that had formed in our home. So, what I'm just saying is sometimes you just, even though it's tough, find those bright moments, even when when the water gets deep. I texted a friend in Houston to check on him, see how he was doing, and he sent me back a picture of this Cajun Navy, and that's people that have these airboats that are able to get out in the neighborhoods and help people out, and you see a lot of it. I mean, it's just That's a neighborhood Dunkirk right there. That's neighborhood Dunkirk flaring up. You know, when you got a fella just showing up at your doorstep, you know, bringing you pizza or, you know, cold water or phone charging, whatever. I mean, and it's beautiful to see people helping each other out. But he sent me a video of in his own neighborhood, you know, of a boat going by. It's pretty just interesting to see, you know, something you normally wouldn't see in a neighborhood. You know, you don't see a lot of boats on streets. So that was interesting, man, and I appreciate him sending that in. But my thoughts and prayers and well wishes go out to all those people struggling down there in Texas. And I'm looking forward to making more donations as those opportunities arise. But Harvey, you know, they name it Harvey, and that's what I don't like about some of these storms. You know, because if you as a senior citizen, you sitting there, and you hear, oh, Harvey's coming. You know, what's Harvey? He's harmless. You know, Harvey sounds like that boy in the neighborhood that never really got it together. You know, that maybe that boy that had he had a flick of autism in his brain or something light. You know, he still lived with his parents and he was always, you know, doing small businesses, pressure washing or, you know, painting. People in the neighborhood would hire him to paint stuff that didn't need to be painted just so Harvey could get him a little bit of pocket money. You know, or Harvey would always be, you know, that, you know, Harvey never got it together. You know, he's still living in his parents' basement in his 30s. You know, and you don't invite him to the Christmas party because he steals all the Christmas candy. And they give it a name like that, Harvey, that sounds like it could be a miscreant or a door-to-door salesman. But then it shows up and it's violent. And sometimes I wish they would start giving these storms names that showed who they were, you know? You know, here comes Manson. You know, here comes Ray Lewis. You know, what about that? Here comes Ron Artest is coming out. You know, see who we got. You know, this Timothy McVeigh, this storm. You know, give him something that at least is going to put, if you're a senior and you hear Harvey's coming, you might not be as aware. You might not hide the cat on top of the cupboard. But if you hear that, you know, that Lee Harvey Oswald is showing up, you know, you might make some different adjustments in your home. So it's just alarming. You know, and it's sad, and I'm not trying to make light of the scenario that people are dealing with, but I've been through some water times, and they're really tough. But it's amazing to see if you can find them and you can find the joy to see, you know, what people are doing to help each other out. And when we're far away, instead of pointing fingers and thinking about this or that, what we can do is to donate. You know, because money helps. Money helps at all. Thank you guys for joining me on this Monday, August 28th, 2017. You know, it's crazy to see winter is coming. You know, winter is coming. And Mother Nature, you know, she lifting her dress up and she got a cold crotch. And we're about to see some of that wrath show up. You know, and people talk about these, you know, the climate change and the warming and this and that. And who knows, you know, how much that's affecting us at this point exactly in certain areas. You know, I was in Canada, in Vancouver this weekend, and there were some drunk girls who were all fired up about global warming. Saying, we want beaches, you know. We sick of the winters. We want beaches out here. And it's like, well, look, you can't have beaches just so everybody else can suffer in the world. But outside of that, I was in Canada this weekend. I had a good time. I went up to Vancouver. We had a fantasy football draft, a destination draft. So every year, my fantasy football league, one of them, we do a destination draft. We pick a city, and we all fly in, and we meet up, and we do our draft. We've done some, you know, we've done Austin, we've done Chicago, New York, where else? New Orleans, Los Angeles, San Diego, some other places, Miami. And we hit up Vancouver. And Vancouver's the kind of city, it's a small city. I mean, you can almost walk everywhere. And you kind of feel like you're just waiting for the city to get going. That's what I kind of felt like. You know, it's a small city, very friendliest people. I mean, friendly men and women. If you're talking to men or women, it just, there's a nice vibe in there. You don't feel like anybody's putting on airs or trying to be too cool for school. You don't feel as much pomp and circumstance as you do here, specifically in Los Angeles, you know, where you go to a bar, to a night event, and everybody's trying to be that fancy cat. You know, everybody trying to get you to, you know, smell their breath to let you know that they had the best tuna that night. You know, they trying to get you to take a hit off that albacore off their tongue. But you don't feel that up in Vancouver. It just felt like a good vibe, friendly people, kindness. Everywhere. You know, you stop and ask somebody for directions, they take you there. I mean, we asked for directions to this beach and somebody just took us there. I mean, it was a couple of miles. It was 15 minutes. But it was captivating little city. You're just kind of waiting for the city to get going. You keep feeling like, oh, there should be more of an energy or a bustle, but people there are just more at peace. And I've always thought Canada was a very peaceful place, but I was, and New York's kind of gotten that way. New York, it's gotten so, I don't want to say gentrified, because I don't know if gentrified just means white, but whatever the financial version of gentrified would be. It's gotten so greenified, moneyfied, that in New York, you don't even get mugged anymore. You got to go up to, north of Harlem to even get mugged. In New York, it's like you walk around these days and it's just it's just a bunch of business people with money. You almost have to ask somebody to, fuck you up a little, stab me a little or something, or just, call me a pervert and, hit me in the back of the knees with a broomstick. If you want to get that vibe, that, that New Yorkie, mug me, I want to feel something. I want to feel like I'm in the city. And you can't get that in New York proper anymore. In Vancouver, you're just kind of waiting for it to pick up, but it's just a peaceful city. There's just peace going on. We had a nice time, though. We had a great fantasy draft there. We went out to this place called Kitts Beach. They have a beach, and it's like right on the edge of the city, and there's people out there just enjoying themselves. It almost looks like you're in heaven. I mean, it's extremely multicultural, and you're out there, and everybody's just enjoying themselves. Everybody seems to be having a good time. It definitely seems like kind of the heaven you would picture in your brain. There's mountains in the background, and there's skyscrapers, and even the homeless people seem to be on the uptick. Like they can still at least remember the homes they had. They can at least still remember maybe a 2-bedroom, 2-bath that they used to spend time in. You see the homeless people in America, they're, it's just like they just been, boiling soup in their own eye sockets. Half of them don't, like they've been gargling their own bile. The homeless people here, they're tattered. They've been through the ringer. They've been through they've been caught up in the dark arts for too long. They don't even remember how to use a faucet. A lot of them, you take them by a sink and they just, they'll urinate or just jerk off into it. But you don't see that up in Canada. You see people, even the homeless people, they're ready for homes again. They know they're not going to be homeless forever. Hell, half of them probably just camping. I mean, these people love the outdoors, and it's summertime. But if you get a chance to go to Vancouver, you want a nice getaway for you and your lady. The nightlife was pretty chill. It was chill nightlife, which for me these days is good, I'm not out there trying to find erroneous, female tits and doing cocaine out of people's buttocks and all that. I'm trying to be more relaxed, and so we had a nice time. But a good fantasy draft. I got a good team. One of my buddies lost his mind, and I hadn't seen this in a while. One of my buddies, the 3 guys went and they got themselves a chocolate bar from one of these marijuana outlets. In the marijuana these days, when I was young, that marijuana, it was just that brown, that dirt, I mean, hell, this shit, half of it was pine. That was one of the flavors. It was pine. I mean, this shit, somebody could have just cut it in their front yard earlier that day, the stuff you were buying when I was a kid. And you'd smoke it in the dark. You had no clue what it was. Half the time you didn't even get fucked up. You just acted fucked up. And that was that marijuana back then. But now these kids, these young buckaroos, they're hitting on this stuff. It's like Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe. This stuff will take you to Narnia. This stuff will have you fall out of the back of your own brain closet into the next realm. And they had a guy in our league who said he had smoked weed a long time ago. I think he was still trying to live a little and catch that vibe. And he ate a little bit of chocolate, dude. He started geeking. He started getting lifted. You could almost hear his brain stem just detaching from his spine. This dude was just a human balloon just floating around the room. He had to start marching. He started marching, took his shirt off. Dude, fucked up people like to take their shirts off, huh? Because they got to get out that cage, boy. Let me out this cotton cage. I'm fucked up. This polyester can't hold me. This dude was lifted and gifted. He was feeling that vibe, dude. He could feel the vultures just start to playing tug of war with his cerebellum. And he was getting lifted, dude. And he's not like that kind of guy. You know, he even texted, he even sent the group text. We're all sitting there in the room. He sends the group text a text saying, I'm having severe adverse reactions from marijuana at this moment. And he said he did that just so he would have documentation of it. Like, this dude's like a research kind of guy. You know, he likes that documentation. But, man, he had his shirt off. He had us call him the place where he bought the chocolate bar. He only had one square. And he got bent. He got bent out, boy. He got bent out. He was catching levels. You know, he was on that third, fourth level, dude. He was hitting warp zones. He was fighting Bowser in his brain. He started marching around the room in a circle. The room made a full circle where you could go into the bedroom and then come out through the bathroom back into the living room, in this hotel room, and he hit that circle. I mean, he was out there like Usain Bolton on that voltage, boy, on that plantography. You know, on that garden that was just growing up through his soul, that weed. And that shit was powerful to watch, dude. We had to pray with him. We had to do a prayer circle. This dude, we bought him a bunch of orange juice. We had him in the shower. He was marching in the shower. So anyway, we got to dinner late. We got to dinner late that night. But we did our fantasy draft. We had a good time in Vancouver. I would recommend Vancouver. It's not as crazy nightlife as you would think, but some great hiking, extremely wonderful people. I met a lot of fans just being out and about. Had some great seafood. And just a fun, safe place. If you want to get out to a vibe. I mean, I felt like I could have slept on the concrete out front, and I would have woke up and somebody would have probably put a couple of blankets over me and maybe even put eardrums in my ears to make sure that something didn't wake me up. It was that kind of environment where people just seemed like they were helping each other out. But we watched the fight. Man, I don't know if you watched the fight or not. Man, it was good, huh? It was interesting. I mean, right out of the gate, I was thinking, did you see the referee? The referee looked like, first of all, it looked like he was just talking to Connor, but I guess maybe the rules need to be readdressed to him because it's, you know, boxing, straight boxing isn't his deal. But the referee looked like every Greyhound bus driver I've ever had. I don't know if you saw that gentleman or not, that beautiful. And he had that booty, like that DS booty. You know, he had that Down syndrome booty. And a lot of, you know, some of you guys know one of my better friends growing up, Derry, had DS and Down syndrome, popular disease. And he had it, and he was, you know, we used to eat sandwiches and stuff and do a little bit of, you know, light ghost hunting and stuff like that by the Ramada when I was growing up. But man, this referee looked like every Greyhound bus driver. So out of the gate, I was like, I'm into this thing. You know, this fight feels already familiar. It was exciting, man. It was exciting. The ring girls looking lovely. And at first I felt so nervous. I don't know if anybody else felt that, but for the first, the first 2 rounds, I was so nervous. And I can't even feel why. You know, when I think back, like, why do I feel this way? I think I was just nervous because, you know, McGregor seemed so out of his element. You know, even his stance and everything, it was just, he looked so vulnerable to me. You know, and I don't know a ton about boxing. I don't know a ton about fighting. I know that both these guys are masters in their universes. But it made me nervous, man. I was nervous for him, you know, the first 2 rounds. And then after a while, I just felt like you could see the flaws they were natural flaws in Connor's. He didn't have any finishing moves. You know, he didn't have that Hayuken. He didn't have that power. He didn't have that power play. He had just a lot of these straight punches, and, you know, I was just like, where's that finishing move? At one point, I'm just like, throw a kick, daddy. You know, throw a knee burst. But he didn't have a finishing move, and that kind of, I feel like, made it a little bit tough. And I wish that, I know at the end of the fight, he said, you know, I wish they would have let us go to the mat where one of us fell, one of us hit the dirt. And I think at the time he probably thought that. But this morning, I bet that he was probably glad that it didn't happen that way. You know, that it didn't go down like that it ended how it did. I mean, it was really interesting to see. I want him to fight somebody else next. Andy Dick. You know, who else could he fight? A-Rod. I'd love to see him take on A-Rod. I'd love to see him honestly beat Chris Paul's ass. You know, if he go in against Chris Paul, I'd love to see, you know, or Martina Navratilova. You know, some of these people that want to be young gunners and get in there. But we'll see, man. It was exciting. I I wonder if maybe in the original agreement, if he would have asked for an MMA referee. That was something I was thinking, like, would he have rather like an MMA referee who maybe, might have at least been able to judge and referee the fight a little bit more, not to his liking, but in a comfortable manner. I feel like it would have made it a little bit more fair. I mean, it was heavily favored to Floyd whenever you were looking at it. Like even when I first came on, I was like, wow, okay, this is boxing. This isn't MMA at all. I mean, this is boxing, and you really saw somebody step outside of their comfort zone. I mean, it's really inspiring. You saw they had a lot of videos and stuff of these guys doing the after party and really having a good time, man. But yeah, I mean, I was nervous. It was exciting to watch, but it was inspiring. I was like, man, mate, I want to work out hard. I want to do something. I want to step outside of my comfort zone. I want to be a baker. You know what I'm saying? I want to challenge, I want to challenge a motherfucker on some donut level. Maybe want to step outside of my comfort zone. I want to wake up and in 4 months, I want to go, toe to toe with an archaeologist. Bitch, where are these bones? I'm out here. Oh, you digging? I'm digging. You could shovel, I could shovel. It made me want to kind of change up and feel inspired. And then this morning, I just, pretty much that a little bit of that left me. Because, inspiration, man, that stuff you have to be reminded. Man, I wish you could have inspiration like an IV, a drip bag of inspiration. That's what I need a lot of times. Because I will feel inspired, and then it will go away. It will go away. But good to be here with you guys. Hope you guys had a happy weekend. I was in Vancouver. I flew back this morning. Had a couple of sets tonight at the Comedy Store and at the Hollywood Improv. And I'm so happy to be here on this past weekend. I have an announcement to make, too. A couple of them. One, we got a new set. It's coming along. You can go to YouTube whenever the podcast comes out on YouTube, which is Monday evening or Tuesday morning. And you can check it out. You can let me know what you think. Also, this week, we're going to launch our Patreon account. That's Patreon/Theo Von, TheoVon. And it's just to support the podcast directly. We've had some advertisers come on and people have reached out and said, look, man, I just would love to support the podcast directly. And personally, I want to continue improving the show. I love doing this show. I'm so grateful for this experience. I want you guys to know that. I was nervous when I started out, and I'm still nervous. I'm nervous a little bit every time I get on here and start, sharing, and I don't know what I'm doing sometimes, if I'm sharing too much or not sharing enough. But I do feel like, like together that we're doing something good, we're on to something good, and I want to take it to the top, and I want to include some options online where people can, become more involved, and that where we can work more together. And so that's what the Patreon will be. And we hope to have that launched on Wednesday, so you guys can check that out if you so choose. No pressure. No matter what, you will always have this past weekend on your Monday mornings. All right, and I want to let you guys know some dates. We have September 6th through 9th. That's next weekend. I'll be at Cap City in Austin. If you have friends or family in Austin, tell them to come on out. September 14th through 17th, I'll be at Hilarities in Cleveland. And then November 17th through 19th, I'll be at Stand Up Live in Huntsville, Alabama. I'm excited about all of those things. Feeling pretty excited, man. I felt a little bit nervous tonight before I started. Sometimes I guess I get a little nervous. I get a little bit nervous of what the vibe is and what you guys want to hear, what I want to talk about. And I just appreciate you guys being supportive and sticking with me. We got a lot of great calls that came in. And I want to just get right into them, man. Some of them are really, really interesting. So let's crack in to the hotline calls right now. The number is 985-664-9503. If you're down in Texas and you had an experience from the rain, where you saw something go on that you thought was pretty remarkable, I'd love to hear a little bit about that. That's one of the things you can hit the hotline with. As well, if you're just going through something and you want to share it, you can hit the hotline with that. Anything that if I've been through it as well, I'm happy to share. I don't have advice, but I do have suggestions, and I do have my own experiences so that we don't have to feel alone. All right, let's check in with this first call right here.
Hey, what's up, Theo? This is Tim from Tennessee.
All right, Tim from Tennessee. I can hear that. I can hear that jingle in your jungle, man, in your neck instrument. you know, that V-box, baby. I can hear you spouting off that sweet Southern. You know, you got that molasses in your sound canal. Let's hear more.
I'm calling about an issue I have. So I have this cousin who's trying to be a rapper, a Christian rapper, actually. You know.
Woo! He's got a cousin trying to be a Christian rapper, man. That's wild, baby. You know?
You know, it's whatever. I don't really like Christian rap. It's all pretty much terrible, but if that's what, you know, people get a hold of that and it helps them, you know, go for it. But the problem is that he's terrible, you know.
Wow. The problem is that he's terrible, man. He dropping hymns and spinning rims, baby. You know what I'm saying? He's caught up in that CR, son, that Christian rap. Having babies with virgin ladies. Parting seas and Negro, please. Y'all turning up out there in that Bible Belt. He's dropping it off, huh? And you think he's terrible. Well, look, I feel you, man. I have friends that have thought that I think are terrible at stuff that do things, you know? And I'm going to stop you right there, but I'm guessing that you're just wondering how to handle it. And here's what I say. What do you lose by him giving it a shot? You know, he's going to go as far as he's going to go with it. You know, he could be great. There were times for years when I was not good at comedy. And if somebody would have really said that to me, I may not have kept going. And I'm not saying that I'm great today, but I'm saying today that I can do my job. And I can say that I do my job well. But, you know, you just can't take away his hope. So I think if you can offer, you know, if you have constructive suggestions, fire him at him. Because, dude, I mean, this guy's getting into a crazy game. I mean, I know there are some Christian rappers that are popular. I think most of them are black, so it'd probably be good to see some, you know, some diversity in the market could be good. I'd love it if actually you could hit the hotline and drop one of his tracks in. Maybe we could even start one of the podcasts off with it next week. So if you have the ability to do that, or you can email it to me at theovon, TheoVon, at mac.com. But I appreciate you calling and saying this, you know. And you got to think that Jesus balled out, you know. I mean, he was a rapper in a way. If you want to think, whether you think about him as the savior, you think about him just as a human being. I mean, that dude was, you know, spitting in the desert. Jesus was dropping lyrics in the desert. It's hard to even keep moisture in your mouth in the desert. So at the very least, boy, he was a Eminem, if you feel me. It's hard to even keep your tongue wet in the desert. And he was roaming around, dropping tracks, dude. You know, so I mean, there's some respect there, you know. I mean, that's real stuff. So I just support his ability to try something different. Try not to be too hard on him. Buy him some gold teeth. You know, maybe make it something that you enjoy. You know, buy him some gold teeth, like, you know, 5 gold teeth and spell out, you know, HYMNS and put that hymns in his grin. You know, or get him a gold necklace with 3 nails on it. You know, it's hard sometimes with family, you know, to support them. Because for some reason, family, when they do some shit, it will drive you way more crazy than when friends do. You know, I mean, my sister she did one of those things on Facebook one time where it's like, I'm going to say something I'm thankful for the next 700 days. And man, I wanted to speak up. I wanted to say, I feel like that's crazy, but it doesn't matter what I feel, you know? So I'd find a way to embrace it. You know, maybe get a tattoo on your back of him fucking dropping mad tracks. You know? The Lamb, boy. The Lamb of Jeezy, boy. You know, he's spitting straight fire wool. You know? So, see what you can do there, man, to support him. Just don't take away his hope. I think you can offer him some suggestions if you feel like it, or ask him if you want suggestions. But don't fire him off and take away his hope. Maybe see if you could be a background singer. That shit would be hilarious. Because then you're embracing it. You're part of it. So I'd find a way to embrace it. If my brother came to me and said he wanted to be a Christian rapper, dude, I would gain about 150 pounds and put on a dress that them thick girls, them girls that got them, they got them bassists. You know, they got that deep throat, you know, where they can gargle different sounds down there. You know, and I would put on a big robe and I would support my brother. I'd be hitting them back round. Jesus. We out in this motherfucking desert. Dang, 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 dang. 3 days later, I'm back. Easter. Play that back up, baby. You can help him out. Good luck with it. Thanks for calling. Onward, next caller.
Hey, what's up, Theo? This is Josh. I'm out here in Charlotte, North Cackalack.
Josh in Charlotte, North Kakalaka. That's North Carolina, for those of you guys who don't know. Josh, thank you for calling.
Like to see you come down to the Comedy Zone here in Charlotte. That'd be cool to see you, man.
I've been there before to Charlotte, and the only time I was there for at the Comedy Zone. I had a good time. I'll be back next year. I don't know the dates, but I saw Cam Newton. I was there for 40 minutes. I'd been in town. I'm sitting on the outdoor patio of a McCormick and Schmick's, having me a little salad, and Cam Newton went by with a baby carriage, pushing his son. He had a newborn, or it had been, a few months old, and he's pushing the son in a baby carriage. And at first I thought it was a homeless guy, because he was, you don't see a lot of adult men at all just pushing a baby carriage by themselves down the street. And you also don't see a lot of adult black men, at least I'm not used to seeing that, pushing a baby carriage down the street. And he had on this, kind of a Gucci hat and a scarf. And I'm like, dang, this dude might be homeless. But then he got closer, and I was like, holy shit, this dude is Cam Newton. So you never know, man. You never know when a homeless person might be Cam Newton. You never know when you might be surprised. Onward.
Just want to get some advice from you if you could help me with something. Started dating this girl, and she's a bit of a squirter.
Oh, okay. So you hitting them waterworks, baby. You passing, I don't know if it's Baltic Avenue or Marvin Gardens, and you hitting them waterworks with the ladies. Okay. This is kind of an edgy topic, but we're going to try to field it here. Thank you for calling. Onward.
I always thought that was cool at first, especially when I'd see it like in some pornography or something, but...
Yeah, them sprayers, them gunners. Remind you of going to the fair when you play that game, you're trying to shoot that thing and get that animal from that old man. And that dude usually probably look like he has some kind of a skin cancer or lung cancer. But Onward, I know what you're talking about.
Man, after a while, it's just getting, I don't know, man. I have to change the sheets all the time. I'm going to the store to get detergent. And these people are probably like, this dude's got a lot of clothes or something,
Yeah, with detergent, and also buying detergent, a lot of people think you might be cooking it down and doing some kind of new dope. And that's one of the issues I run, because I've at times in the past, I had me a little bit of an Afrin habit. I get that Afrin, and I use the suggested dose. Now, I'm not riding outside of my suggested dose circles, but man, sometime coming around 11 o'clock, dude, my hands start fiending for a hit off that Afrin, for a hit to, get my nasal passages sedated. But yeah, I can feel you, man. So you're dealing with a lot of extra laundry, because you got Old Faithful in the bedroom. Onward.
But I don't know if you can give me any advice on that, man. It's just a mess, man. And I really like the girl too. But all right, man. Have a good one.
It's interesting, man, because I met a girl years ago she'd moved to town. She dated one of the Jonas brothers. I don't know which one. There's 3 of them. I think they all damn look the same. Beautiful young men. From what I remember, I never looked at them very closely. But this gal, she was really, she had that extra plumbing. And some girls, they just got that wild piping where they be spraying out a little. And yeah, at first you're like, oh, this is a party. Daddy's here, I'll do it. I'll wash dishes down between this gal's legs, But then after a while, that ain't no joke. It's a liability, and unless they're, putting extra use to some of that activity, like they're watering plants or, refilling the fish bowl, it can be a bit overwhelming at times. So I don't know what you do, because you don't want to make her feel bad, because this is a natural thing. And look, we all have things naturally about us that our loved one or our spouse doesn't like. It could be that you clear your throat, or you pick your nose while you drive, or that you have a lot of body gas. And sometimes if I don't sleep well, I'll get a little extra body gas. So, I know that I can be, I have things about myself. But maybe find some other ways you guys can be sensual without hitting that gasm. you know, without, Hurricane Harvey stopping by y'all's bedroom every night, because that can be wild, so maybe talk to her about it. See how she feels, because otherwise you got to keep a stack of towels there in the bedroom and you got to really sound off. Otherwise, other than that, I'd say make it fun. Put a couple of barrels. They used to have this thing, little buckets. They used to have this show called the Bozo Show or something, where if you got a thing you threw these balls, if you got it in a bucket, you got you a Subway sandwich. And they'd have children on there. And this might have just been locally, but they had this guy, Bozo the Clown or somebody, the grand prize game. You throw these ping pong balls at these buckets. If you got it out to the 5 bucket, then you got you maybe a Subway sandwich for your whole classroom of children. So maybe do that. Maybe make something fun or cute about it. Or just make 2 nights a week where y'all do sex, and that's the activity night. And this, show up prepared. Put floaties on. Be a baller. You know what I'm saying, dude? Get that Michael Phelps neck piece. Do something, But I think instead of, if you want to keep her and you do care about her, then you're going to have to find a way to make it comfortable for you. And to not talk to her about it in a way that makes it uncomfortable for her. Man, that's a tough one. That is a tough one, man. And if somebody out there has good advice for this gentleman, about his damp damsel, if we will, then hit the hotline and let them know. And I'll try to do a follow-up episode this week where other people can give you some return advice about that damp damsel and how to handle that. But it's interesting because the things you see in pornography, man, you get those things in real life, dude. It's not the same thing. If like you got a girl out there, they had this one thing, years ago, some girl was eating, she could eat donut holes with her hoo-ha. And that's great. That's cool on a brunch, maybe a Sunday brunch, you partying with your new girlfriend, and you having you a little bit of fruit or some, a yogurt, and she hiding donuts, she calorying up. But dude, come, a couple months of that, you having to run to the store all the time and get donuts and shit, that shit's crazy. And what if her hoo-ha starts to upscale and that thing wants a Butterfinger or a Payday, or $100,000 or $1,000? That thing starts hiding whatchamacallits and almond joys in its cheeks. Dude, then you're talking the dark arts. So the things you see in pornography, sometimes they can escalate when you get them in real life. But I would approach it in a way, if you do talk about it with her, in a way that's comfortable for her. Because you just don't want to make her feel bad, because once she starts feeling bad about her body, that's going to be uncomfortable for everybody, man. But good luck, man. I appreciate you calling in about it, brother. Whoo! You partying out there, dude. Wherever you are, North Kakalaka, they partying. All right, next caller. Onward.
What's up, buddy? This is Nathan from Kansas City.
This is Nathan from Kansas City. I just picked your defense in my fantasy football league. I hope they do well. Onward, Nathan.
I just had a quick question for you, man. I grew up with two real good friends of mine, and we're kind of slowly drifting apart. And I believe that they're actually pretty upset with me. Now, I'm not sure what it is that they're upset about, but I would like to sit down man to man and kind of talk it out. And
okay, so you grew up with two good friends, and they're really upset at you, but you're not sure what they're upset about, and you'd like to sit down man to man and talk it out. That's what we got so far. Onward.
And they don't answer the phone, they don't respond to text messages. So I'm kind of at a loss at what to do, and I'm hoping maybe you could help me out with some advice on this subject here, man. Love the show.
All right, thanks for calling, man. Love the show, man. I appreciate you enjoying it, and I love you, brother. I want you to feel good about this, dude, but it sounds like they're upset. They're calling you. They're upset, but you don't know about what. And I don't want to say I don't believe you, man, but you got to have some inkling, if they're upset, but you're not sure about what, you probably got to have some inkling, and if they don't want to respond to you right now, then, obviously if it's two of them, they must be really upset about it. So, I think there's two things here. One, I would just give them some space. Maybe they're moving along. Maybe you guys don't even need each other. Maybe this friendship has run its course. Or two, it sounds like there's a little more to the story. I would own up to whatever happened and go see them face to face and own up 100%. And I wouldn't own up with a but, look, man, this happened, but I felt this way. I'd leave the but off of it. I would show up, own up to whatever you did personally, and don't ask for if you want continued friendship, then say, look, bruh, I want to still be friends. I want to still be buddies. I want to still split Kit Kats together. I want to still, sit around and hide dip in our mouths together and do friendship. I want to still sit in a room and have your body heat be in the distance. If you still want those things, then let them know that. But you're also going to have to probably, if there was something you did, you're going to have to apologize to it. I'd do it man to man. I wouldn't hit the phone lines. I would do it man to man, and I wouldn't say any buts. I would just apologize and let them know, look, I'd still like to be friends. Adult friendship, dude, this shit's tricky out here. Because adults, they get busy. Sometimes their wives don't want them hanging out with other adults. People start getting, jealousy happens. You get a new house, but your buddy don't have a house yet. And he's still out there in an apartment. Jealousy happens, Your buddy loses his leg and you still got 2 legs. And next thing you know, he don't want to talk to you. Because he think you're showing off by having 2 legs. That's crazy. But adulthood friendship is hard. And that's one thing that was fascinating about young friendship. To be friends when you were young, all it was proximity usually. It's like your best friends, still to this day even, were just usually people that lived near you. That was it. It's not like there was this big friend search where you interviewed thousands of other children when you were a child. It was just who's nearby. Oh, they are? Boom, boom, friendship. It's like a lot of it's just proximity based. So, if you value their friendship, then I would make it a man-to-man apology. I wouldn't try it on the phone. I appreciate you calling up. Let's hit another call here. We're cruising through some calls, man. And I appreciate you guys calling and hitting the hotline, 985-664-9503. I'm feeling good. I'm trying to get through this. It's 12:45 a.m. here on the Pacific Coast time. I got a cool week coming up. We have David Allen Greer coming in on our podcast for Allegedly. Spencer Pratt as well. That episode will be airing this week, I believe, on Allegedly. That's my Hollywood podcast. You can check it out with my wonderful co-host, Matthew Cole Weiss. And we have, who else is coming in? It's rumored that Chris Hansen's supposed to be coming on. So that could be really, really exciting. All right, let's take another call. Here we go. All right, let's take another call. Here we go.
Hey, Theo, this is Cody calling from Boulder, Colorado again.
This is Cody from Boulder, Colorado. You up there in the country up there where everybody's eating drugs and stuff up there in the mountains. Thank you for calling.
First off, I want to thank you for taking my last call about texting and phone culture. I really enjoyed your poo in the meat Taco Bell story.
Yeah, it's a true story, and everybody uses that there was feces in the meat in their Taco Bell in their town, but this really happened in my hometown when I was growing up. It really, really happened, and it was alarming, but we made it through it as a community. And it's amazing sometimes what community can overcome together. Let's hear more.
And when you said, I don't know if we can go back related to texting, that really kind of made me think about some shit. The reason I'm calling this time is about love. I feel like you don't really talk about that other than like guys trying to blow you. That's really the only thing we've heard. Specifically, I want to talk about monogamy and polygamy. From where I'm at in Boulder, and I know in like San Francisco, polygamy is real big.
Okay, so from Boulder, he's saying that he wants to talk about love. He's asking me, I don't talk about love that much except for if fellas is trying to blow me or run my pole. If they're trying to run my pole with the inside of their face. And that is probably in reference to when Andy Dick tried to blow me a few times over there in Shreveport, Louisiana. But onward, I'll hear the rest of this.
From where I'm at in Boulder, and I know in like San Francisco, polygamy is real big. And personally, I'm just not sure that I can marry the same person for 40 plus years or whatever. So yeah, just curious your thoughts on that. Thanks again for doing what you do, man. You're a freaking legend. Peace.
I appreciate your call, man. I appreciate your previous call, and I appreciate this one. I really do. I appreciate everybody that takes time to call in and help, because this show goes. It goes because you guys call, My brain, I'm short. I've always had a short, kind of a short brain. I remember they did a CAT scan on me, and the man said, "You got a short brain." And I was like, "What the fuck does that mean?" And I got angry with him, even though I was just wearing just that one piece in the hospital where the back is open, where anybody could fuck you, which is really, I think, very scary to put on somebody when they're already alarmed and they're in a hospital. I mean, I say put them in a full damn ski outfit, but, they want to put you in that thing to scare you even more. And the man said, "You got a short brain." He goes, the width of your brain from the bottom to the top is not very tall. He goes, "You got a short brain." But that doesn't surprise me. I've always had, a lot of medical deficiencies or abnormalities. My father told me when I was young that I had the heart of a lesbian. And the man told me, one of the doctors told me when I was a child that I had the rib cage of a large cat. Probably, I'm thinking some sort of a mountain cat. Probably something you would see up in Boulder, maybe. But anyhow, we're talking monogamy and polygamy, or monogamy. And can you do it? What's it like these days? I think I wouldn't be surprised if we get more towards a culture where, where marriage isn't as necessary. And I hate to say it because I want to see, I love the family unit. And it's statistically proven across the board that children survive and thrive better when they have two parents in the home. And that's a statistic for every ethnicity. Go look it up. Every ethnicity. And so but it's like, is that what's popular right now? Is that what's going on? And I don't know. It scares me too, to think, I mean, I've been talking to a gal, and I was just talking to her about, how that makes me feel very nervous. And I think part of the nervous thing about being with somebody forever is just the propensity for you to be able to mess up, to cheat or to lie or to not be a good husband, and that's the scary part, I think, of monogamy these days. Is man built to be able to withstand all this constant barrage with the pornography and the Instagram and the titties wandering by? I mean, you open your eye. If you even open your eyes outside, it's like everything has titties on it now. When you start to see them, and it's just there's just a lot of breast work out there that there wasn't, I think, years ago. Our grandfather, only time he saw some other breasts, maybe if he went to the store, or if he even held a soft melon back in the day, if you probably in the 1930s, if he even held a soft melon, that's the only time he really thought of somebody outside of his marriage. When he was checking melons, when he was considering buying fruit, I mean, that used to be the old playboy, probably pulling up to a fruit stand and feeling the different, the plums and the different, honeydews out there and just feeling their softness. I mean, goddamn, you put a C-cup avocado in each one of my hands, and my penis will mount up on top of my nuts, and it will be erect. So it's wild to think that back in the day that's the only stimulation that they had. When I was young, you had the pornography magazines, but you also, a lot of people, I think, in our neighborhood were drawing pictures of vaginas in the dirt. And I don't know if it was just in our neighborhood, even around town, there was a group or maybe just one person, and an artist, I guess you could even call him an artist, or somebody that was trying to do graffiti but didn't have any paint. And they would just be drawing pictures of vaginas in the dirt, and you'd be wandering around town and just see a vagina in the dirt. And that would always be a little bit crazy, to see that, and that would make you feel erect and stuff, and you never knew when you were going to see that. But nowadays, yeah, it's like, it's hard to just conserve your sexual energy for one person because there's so many things trying to take it from you nowadays. Polygamy, I don't know. I mean, it sounds like it'd be great, of course, to maybe have a change of pace in your life. But you got to be a great multitasker. Would it be good for the kids? I don't know enough about it, what the effect of polygamy has on children, when you get dad 2 or 3 nights a week, when you got your different types of wives. And I mean, I feel sometimes like I have enough love inside of me to be able to maybe live in that environment, but is that practical? I don't know. I don't know, man. And I don't talk a lot about my past endeavors, man. I mean, I've had a lot of sexuality over the years. You know, some good and some bad. And I don't really even like sex that much. I'm not real keen on it. You know, people banging their bodies into each other. You know, it's just, sometimes it just gets old a little bit. And maybe that's a dour look at sex. And maybe I need to, you know, have my chi, you know, reconfigured. You know, I need to take my chi into the chi shop, you know, and remodel my chi. But that's just how I feel sometimes, you know, that after a certain point, also, it's just got to be about more than that to have that connection. But it's a great, you know, I don't think there's a man, you know, every man thinks about it for sure about polygamy. You know, I think it's natural. They say it's natural to want to mount up and do love and do sex on others. They say it's natural. So it's a fight you're in. If you're staying monogamous and you're in a one-on-one relationship, if you've been in a long-term relationship and you've stayed true in it, I'd love to hear some of what that feels like. What some of those values are. What are the prizes there that you get emotionally for yourself? What does that feel like, man, if you're out there? You know, or ladies. A lot of these ladies be running around these days, slanging that canal. It's wild out there. It's definitely wild. How are we getting on time here, man? I think we're getting a little bit along. I'm actually going to, let's take one more call here and see what's happening, man. I want to say this. We got a caller right here.
What's up, Theo? Hello, Louisiana boy, calling in here from Shreveport, L.A.
Shreveport, Louisiana. That's Randy Dick tried to break me off with them tongue and jowls, you know, on my biddles. Onward.
Just calling in with some problems that I'm currently having. I graduated high school 2 years ago.
Congratulations. If you graduated high school in Louisiana, congratulations, brother. Not easy for a lot of people, and I appreciate you calling tonight, man. Thank you. Onward.
Currently 20 years old. Just been having some problems with excessive pornography use, lack of motivation to go out and get girls. I had a few girlfriends in high school, and every time I get the opportunity to go hang out with a girl or whatever, I always talk myself out of it, whether it's, you know, kind of insecurity or lack of confidence.
All right, I appreciate this, man. I mean, you know, this is an issue that I've struggled with over the years. You know, you're having some issues with pornography, and you were dating in high school, but now you're not dating that much, and you're feeling like you might have, you know, a lack of motivation to do that. But it sounds like you are interested in women, so onward.
Because I have in the past, you know, had girls. I know I can talk to girls. I'm not a complete loser, but I was kind of going through some shit right now with that. I was just, you know, calling to see what your thoughts are on that and how I can kind of pull myself out of this funk.
Dude, you can pull yourself right out of that funk. I'm going to tell you that, how to unfunk. Dude, how to ungunk your funk. How to ungunk your funk, this is how. So you got to stop the masturbation. You got to stop the pornography. If you feel like you feel like it's gotten out of control, people that are just watching it and enjoying it, and not everybody's calling and saying they feel like it's gotten out of control. So if you feel that way, that's probably based on something real. You know, that it's become a bad habit. It can probably be a healthy habit for you again one day, but for now you might want to address it. You know, and some people think I'm crazy. Well, dude, he can jerk off. What does it mean? He can jerk? This fella just trying to jerk off. But if he's reaching out and he's not comfortable for him anymore, then it's not a fun game for him. You know, yeah, I get it, dude. It's fun. You know, I remember cruising down the interstate and, you know, blasting one out the side of a open van door. You know? And that was a blast, dude, but those days are over. And now when you're just doing it at home and you're not going out and meeting people, so what you got to do is you got to cut it off. Not your wiener, bruh. But you just have to stop it. You got to find some ways to stop it. You got to find habits. Notice what your habits are whenever you do it, and shut it down at night. No electronics late at night. Shut it down. You know, and as you get away from, if you get 30 days away from it, I promise you, you'll just start to feel better in your body. You'll feel more motivated. You'll feel more confident. And I'll even tell you this, man. They got SAA meetings, and that's it's sexual addiction stuff, and that can be anything, man. It doesn't mean you out there perverting. You know, it doesn't mean you out there peeping Toming or, you know, being a weirdo. They got them, I'm looking here right here online. They have them on Monday, Thursday, and Friday in Shreveport, Louisiana. So you can check them out. Nobody's going to know that you heard it on here and went. Nobody's going to know anything like that. But go check it out, man. You can hear about it. You can hear other people share what's going on with them. It's recovery, bro. You can get in that and make yourself feel better, dude. You know what I'm saying? Get off that seed gun. Because you just getting handy with the seed gun, baby. You Wyatt Earp. When you come to your crotch, bro, you are Wyatt Earp. And that's okay, man. You just got to settle that Wild West down. You got to settle that. You got to take the wild out of the West for a while. And I promise you, you'll feel invigorated. You'll feel more confident. You got to let that chi build up. You got to let that chi build up. And I'm telling you that because I know that. You know, I'm telling you that because I know it. And you ain't alone, baby. I've been out in them skeet streets. And I know some people say that I beat this topic to death, play on words, of course. But look, if you're calling about it and I can share about it, man, then I'm happy to do that. And I appreciate you guys all hitting the hotline. We got one more call right here. But good luck, man. And if you even want to just hit me on the hotline again, I won't put the call on, but, just to let me know what's going on, or if you want to talk about it in the future, man, I'm happy to discuss it. But, yeah, it's a battle out there, dude. It's a battle out there. If you want to be a man that's not caught up in the dark arts, that's not out there, hiding in the living room while your wife laying in the other room, and she's wondering why your sex life is bad, and you out there spraying out, laying down in the tub trying to be quiet, jacked up on some Pornhub. It's tough, guys. I'm not saying you're not wrong for doing it, but it's tough, and we're battling that shit. We're better than that. They create these things to weaken us, to beat us down. You think George Washington was jerking off at night, dude? Hell no. That dude was sharpening his wooden teeth and being ready for the next day. And they say he just chopped down one cherry tree. I bet that motherfucker chopped down all of them. Because he showed up. He battled his tough times. Imagine having termites in your teeth and you still got to wake up and smile. It's tough to be a man these days. They don't want us to be a man. But we're not gonna fall down, baby. We're not. We're gonna toe the line, man. Good luck to you out there. But you can check out those where those meetings are at saa.recovery.org. And it doesn't mean you're a creeper or a weirdo, dude. Trust me, there's the most amazing people you'll meet are in some of these meetings, dude. Businessmen, professionals, heroes, bruh. Heroes. All right, let's hit one more call here on this hotline. Y'all got me feeling fired up. You know what I'm saying? Fired up. I'm about to swim down to Houston and use my body as a sandbag. Again, you can donate. You can text HARVEY to 90999. You can't find a way to help like that. Take $10 out of your pocket, put it into somebody else's that can help. JJ Watt is a great charity that's online. You can hit them up online. Just Google JJ Watt Charity and see what they're doing to help out. Let's do one more call. This call came in from a gentleman.
Hey, Theo. I just wanted to thank you for the fresh perspective that this past weekend continually reminds me to stay positive and celebrate living. And just had a little baby girl born 3 days ago, healthy and happy and gorgeous as ever. I appreciate you doing the Lord's work on the back of that skullet. Brendan Schaub's right. You're about to take the comedy game to a whole new level. Love you, brother. Take care.
Love you too, man. Congratulations, dude. You got that 3-day-old baby girl, huh? Look at us, man. That's a supportive. You want to support feminists? That's how we do it. We're bringing daughters into the world. We're raising them to be good women, to be confident, to be able to become good mothers. We're trying to lead by example. We might fail at times, but we get back up. And I appreciate that call, man. I really appreciate that call. I appreciate the thank you. Because, it's tough out here, man. It's tough out here for me. And it's nice when I get to get these calls because, I wish a lot of times that, I'd left out of here to Los Angeles and moved home and had myself a family by now, and had that, and I get, a little bit, a little jealous. So I appreciate you sharing that with me. Makes me feel like I'm a part of something. But yeah, man, little girls are the cutest, dude. My family was never very close, and then my sister had a baby, When she first had it, I was like, man, I was so angry at her. I'm like, what are you doing? You don't even know about life, or you don't know. I was just so judgmental. And then, man, once I got to know this kid, you know, and she's just the light of my life, and now she has 2 daughters, and, you know, anything they do just brings joy to me. And they brought so much joy to me over the years just by being alive. You know, and little girls are so sweet, man. And so I appreciate you sharing that blessing with us, you know. And that's what it's about, you know. That's what it's about, dude. We're out here trying to help each other out, to remind each other what we can be, boy. We taking this thing. So thank you. I appreciate that call, man. You know, we're trying. We're in this together, dude. We celebrating living. So hit the hotline. Check out YouTube and check out the new set, man. I'm so thankful to Ken Highland, one of my producers who helped put this set together for me, man. Dude, this is cool. We're doing some cool stuff. We got the Patreon. We can check that out. That should be up by Wednesday. And that is patreon.com/Theo Von. And you can support the podcast directly. We're just going to have some small ways you can support, and hopefully some other neat ways that people can get involved and become a part of this. But by hitting the hotline, you can become involved. I had a couple more calls on the call list, but I'm not going to get to them because it's 1 a.m. here, and I still got to edit this thing and put it up. But again, my heart goes out to everybody in Texas. And, you know, if you have somebody that's down there, even if they're not in Houston, text them. Just let them know you're thinking about them. You know, let them know that just for a minute that we're not thinking about ourselves. That's what we're trying to do. So we're going to celebrate living, man. Happy birthday to that 3-year-old. And thank you for the callers. And I'll talk to you guys soon, man. Finish my coffee. And this is the Spencer Jacob Grau, Grau band. And that link will be in the YouTube as well.
Celebrate living, celebrate misery. You know that soon we're gonna die.
And as well, if anybody has a topic that they'd like to have us address on the podcast,